You're listening to DJ Oz Oz.
Hello, and welcome everybody to Creation Watch. I got some doctors with me today. I'm getting double docked tonight, boys and girls. It's going to be awesome. And I hope that you're all sitting down for this because we're going to discover some disturbing truths about the shape of our planet and the world that we live in at large tonight. So, before I get going too far into this, let me introduce you to who we have here. I have Mr. Michael Vandergraaf, also known as Dr. Tapioca Weasel. He's a physicist. He loves to dive into the flat Earth topic. Why don't you just say hello and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do? Mm-hmm.
Seriousness most of the time. I do a show on Sunday nights with Maya, Bad Science Sunday, and it's a lot of fun. And I love talking about flat Earth. I think it's the most absurd topic, and she doesn't let us do it very often. So, yeah.
Yes. And just so you know, the first 15 seconds what you said there was muted because I'm awesome on my show and I'm a professional.
Yeah.
No just so you know, the first 15 seconds where you were talking, you didn't say anything important, just your name and credentials and stuff. Who needs to know that?
I never say anything important.
Yeah.
No, I'm a physicist. I work professionally as a physicist. And we spend absolutely zero time at work worrying about the shape of the Earth. So we actually there is a grad student whose entire job it is to design a little tilt mount for a mirror that will adjust the angle of the mirror when we're doing experiments, because you throw the atoms up and then they move slightly compared to where they would be if the Earth was not rotating. And so you have to move your laser slightly to hit it in the right spot. And that takes a lot of engineering and thought. So yeah. Thing.
Question from the audience about my credentials. No, I am not a doctor. I'm not even. I don't even have a master's. So no, not even close to a doctor. But I'm a big nerd, so that I make up for it in nerdery. All right, now Doc Dino, the mysterious theropod that has somehow survived from the Mesozoic era to grace us with their presence today. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself, your channel, what you do?
Well, yep, I am a Doc Dino, not an actual doctor. My name is just a play on Kent Hovind because it's fun to make him angry. Though I do hope to maybe be a doctor someday. Not sure. Honestly, not sure.
Of paleontology, an actual Doc Dino.
Yes, I love paleontology. I have a undergrad degree in paleontology. Then I like animals and rocks, and I'm sure he'll say something to make me question something.
All right. So the gentleman we're talking about today, I don't think you've ever got a chance to cover this person live. I know you like, and I say you, I'm talking to Doc here, but this person, talking to Doc, that's not helping. That's not helping. I'm talking to Tapioca Weasel.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but I know you've mentioned before that you've wanted to cover Eric Dubay for a while now, and
Eric Dubay is like one of the original one of the original big flat earthers.
Right.
And the sort of their seminal work, as it were, 200 proofs the Earth is flat, is cited by a lot of people as being one of the things that got them into flat Earth, which I just find utterly bonkers.
Yeah, and that's an adventure in and of itself. I've seen people. It's a long video, so you got to break it down. But 200 proofs is.
It's like 2 hours.
Yes.
That sounds like agony.
Yeah. Well, so you've heard of people that have like a punchable face, right? For some reason, Eric Dubay has a punchable voice, right? There's just this air of indignant arrogance to it, to what he's saying. Someone being so confident about being so wrong annoys me to no end. It's just
how
charming. There's not that many people that I can think of that have a punchable voice. One other person would be Jill.
Yes, I can see that.
Jill has a punchable voice. I can't remember what Jill stands for.
Jesus
like
is
justice
Lord.
And Lord. Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord is what Jill stands for, right?
Yep.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but when it comes to, and I'm gonna mess things up here real quick, just a second. No, maybe not. Okay, I won't have to. When it comes to Jill, though, Jill's a meme to me. I don't take him seriously. But Eric Dubay has a huge following. Eric Dubay has people that take him seriously. He's actually converted people to what do you even call it? It's not a religion, but it's
I mean, often religious.
Yeah, and religion is a big part of it. My friend Nathan, the flat earther, he is very much a flat earther because he believes that's like what the Bible says. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, if the Bible says it must be true, though, right? That's I mean, Scripture is
sure. Let's go with that.
Is a wonderful type of modern science that can't be refuted, right? Like if it's in the Bible.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, let's let this young man see if he can't convince us the Earth is flat.
At the turn of the 17th century, shortly after Queen Elizabeth's advisor John Dee was corresponding with Gerardus Mercator regarding the polar magnetic mountain, Queen Elizabeth's personal physician...
I know it's just his voice, but he sounds like he's trying to mock somebody.
Yeah.
You know, he's already said something I got to ask about, because this is, if you all don't know, this is actually Doc's area of expertise, because
regarding the polar magnetic mountain.
Polar magnetic mountain, no. Magnets.
Oh,
how do they work?
Yeah. I was brought here under false pretenses. I did not agree to talk about magnets. Yeah, no, it's that is apparently a thing. I think like there are like maps of like a big mountain of I think people thought for a while that the source of the magnetic field on the Earth, which is one of the things that has been known and used for navigation, the only thing older than it is the stars and the sun, which is a star. But I think people thought that there was like a giant lump of, I think they called it lodestone back then, basically magnetite or something, and that was sort of the source of all of this, and that it was located, somewhere in the Arctic, which not like the worst hypothesis, but
so that there would be two tall mountains of magnetic material at either pole sending out a field. Yeah. Like an onion shaped.
Yeah.
Kinda.
We got 12 seconds in, guys.
I mean, what did you expect?
Queen Elizabeth's personal physician and knighted president of the College of Physicians, Sir William Gilbert, wrote his opus De Magnet, in which he argued against the prevailing belief of a polar magnetic mountain, claiming instead the Earth itself to be a great magnet.
That's not wrong though to say the Earth's a great magnet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the best way of putting it. The Earth, it's more like
It's more like a generator.
It's not a big permanent matter. Yeah, it's more like a generator. It's a geodynamo. That's what it is.
There you go.
And geodynamo theory is incredibly difficult. I mean, you're taking... It's basically like all of the worst parts of vector calculus and fluid dynamics together. Like the hardest parts, I mean. And that it's a mathematical hole that you can fall into and never come out of. It's very, very like...
That sounds deep and complex.
Like, I have 4 years in geology, and I barely understand anything about it. It's complicated.
Yeah, my entire level of knowledge is large chunk of molten metal moving creates electric and magnetic fields.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, like, yep.
What we've experienced gives us our magnetosphere, which is neato, and you can't spell magnetosphere without it.
In the wake of the Copernican revolution, Gilbert's new model, in stark contrast to the long-held, now deemed unscientific notion that compass needles were attracted to a lodestone mountain at the pole, proposed that the Copernican ball Earth actually generated magnetism from a hypothetical molten metal core, which caused a constantly moving dipolar magnetic field over the globe. To this day, Gilbert's hypothesis...
You're talking about Gilbert, so...
Yeah, when did Gilbert say this? Are we still talking about like the 1600s?
Yeah, this is the same time as John Dee talking about propositions of a molten core and things like that. Yeah, this was...
They basically got it right. I mean...
Did they really think that in that time frame?
If they thought that, then they got it way more right than I would have expected anybody to get it right back then. The inner core... Doc, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the inner core is solid, but
yes, there
is liquid, and the mantle is like mostly solid, but it's sort of like a slush sort of thing. I don't know, but
basically,
this was 1600s. They kind of nailed it.
Well, and that's the thing. I'm looking to see if there's any documentation on that, because I didn't think the molten core theory came around to like the 1930s.
Yeah.
Were there people proposing that before that?
I'm not sure who first proposed it. I know we can detect it through seismic readings. I'm not sure when we first got those.
Yeah.
It depends on what you mean by seismic readings. I mean...
Well, so... okay, it was in 1906, and yeah, it was seismic readings. So I guess short summary, when a wave goes from one medium to another, it refracts slightly, so it bends. And it does it through temperature too. But so going through the solid mantle, it hits that liquid core and super deflects, and you actually get like a shadow of the core on the opposite side of the planet. Which you can pick up if you have enough seismic readers or seismographs.
Yeah, and the waves they refract when they go through, so like the core will act sort of like a lens in some ways, and then they also reflect too. And waves are funky because they reflect, and then when they hit like the surface of the Earth, it's like when you take a rope and you go like that with it, the wave propagates to the end, and then it still reflects back. It doesn't just vanish into nothing. It sort of reflects off of the nothing that it hits. It's waves are cool. Very complicated.
Oh, very.
Remains pure speculation, since no one in history has ever come close to penetrating or perceiving the supposed 3,950 miles to the ball Earth's core. In reality, the deepest drilling operation in history, the Russian Kola Ultradeep, after decades of work and dozens
8 miles, right?
Yeah, I think. Maybe it was
of
8
broken
kilometers.
drills, managed to penetrate only 8 miles down. So the entire
Pretty
ball
sure it
Earth
was-
model, taught in
Yeah, I'm
schools,
pretty sure it was
showing
like 8
detailed
miles.
descriptions of a crust, outer mantle, outer core, and inner core layers, are all purely speculative, as we have never
So does Eric's opinion is that unless we drill down there and touch it physically with our reading material, with our reading equipment, we can't know. But are there other systems that we use and tools that we use to measure and determine the nature of the internal systems of the Earth without being able to physically view them?
Yeah, I mean, I just talked about seismology. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you can see stuff moving, or sorry, you can read the movements of something as it passes through the core of the Earth, or just through the Earth in general. Like, you can use seismic waves to identify where an underground rock layer begins. You can figure out where it ends.
There's like big
Yeah,
slabs
what
of
angle it's at.
basalt moving around under there that we track, right? That we know where they're at. That,
Not just salt, but just a ton of stuff. Yeah.
you know,
That's cool. I didn't know that.
they just like because
Yeah.
it's like floating around with because all the different materials will melt at different temperatures, so it'd be solid in one section and be liquid in another. Yeah.
Yep. And you can detect that.
even broken through
I mean,
beyond the
it's
crust.
funny. Geology programs never get any budget, so we have to figure out a lot with what we get.
Yeah.
Figure out a lot with a little. Sure.
Furthermore, there is nowhere in nature that molten metal retains any significant magnetic properties once heated past the Curie point, let alone create some convoluted, constantly moving dipolar field, as Gilbert claimed then, and proponents of the globe still maintain today.
See, and when I looked up
Okay.
dipolar, the age of dipolar field research, it says the research began in like the 1880s. So again, I don't know if Gilbert's. I wish I knew who he was talking about when he said Gilbert. I know he said it earlier, but I didn't take down the name. But I'm interested to know who this alleged early pioneer of science is that was doing all this proposals of molten earth or molten core theory with dipolar magnetism and all this stuff that seems like he was ahead of his time.
Yeah. And also the statement that a metal will not keep any of its magnetic properties beyond the Curie point. So the Curie point is basically it's a temperature at which all of the little you can think of all of the atoms and molecules inside of many substances, not all, but many substances, as being like little magnets that can all be aligned. And when they're all aligned, then the thing that you hold in your hand is like clearly magnetic and produces a field. And that's a ferromagnet. And when you heat it up, eventually all of these little magnets, they just get mixed up into whatever thing, so they won't produce like a net magnetic field. But they still are magnetic. It's just that they don't have that particular property of ferromagnetism. So it's...
Oh, homeboy was brilliant too. William Gilbert was an English physician, physicist, and natural philosopher. He passionately rejected both the prevailing Aristotelian philosophy and the scholastic method of university teaching. He is remembered today for his book, De Magnet, a unit of magneto motive force known as the magnetic potential was named the Gilbert in his honor. So he's like one of the early pioneers in studying magnetic fields. I bet he could figure out a lot about the spherical nature of the Earth from studying the way that the magnetic fields act in the lab to give him an idea of the spherical nature of our planet. Because like if you do like a study with like different like ferrous powders and things like that. You can actually see how they fall along the lines of the field and things like that. You can see the sphere. So when you look at the way the magnetic fields work on the planet, you can kind of make that same inference. But I digress.
Several decades after Gilbert's De Magnet made its impression on the world, another knighted president of the Royal Society, Sir Isaac Newton, would write the influential Principia Mathematica, where he proposed the concept of gravity to account, among other things, for how people could exist without falling off the underside of Copernicus's ball.
Hey, Spooky. Yes, I tricked Dr. Tapioca Weasel in here by saying we're going to talk about flat Earth, and then I threw him some Eric Dubé magnet talk. And now you can see
tricked.
He's got the Twitch going on. Watch the Twitch.
Ball Earth. Coincidentally, or perhaps conspiratorially, a couple centuries later, it would be yet another royally knighted man, Sir Ernest Shackleton of the Royal Navy.
That's and Doc, since this is your first exposure to Eric Dubé, Doc Dino, his videos are just...
I'm guessing he's a massive conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, well, his videos are going to be peppered with these sweet memes, too, from the Flat Earth Society. They're probably the best part of his videos. Is
Yeah, they are.
Oh, jeez.
As you can see, this is Australia because
that's awful.
Yeah, this is Sydney, so because a Freemason said so, it's upside down.
Who would allegedly complete that upside-down journey under the globe, becoming the first person to reach the so-called southern magnetic pole. Back when the Earth was perceived as a level plane, there was only one pole, the North Pole, directly below Polaris, which was both geographically and magnetically the center point of Earth. Due to the hypothetical globe's hypothetical dipolar magnetic core, however, there suddenly became new frontiers to discover.
Do you hear the venom on the word hypothetical when he says that? Hypothetical.
Not only did Earth have a geographic North Pole in the Arctic, but now its geographic antipode, the South Pole in the Antarctic. Since Gilbert's magnetic poles were caused by perpetually shifting molten metal, there now also came into existence constantly moving northern and southern magnetic poles as well. And
Which they
lastly, Earth's magnetic field was claimed.
They do. Yes.
They do.
Yeah, they wander
And
daily.
to the extent that so airports, they label their runways based on the heading, and the heading that they use is like the magnetic heading, apparently, or at least this is true in a lot of places. And because the poles move every so often, they need to change the number of the runway because it's suddenly 10 degrees different from what it used to be. So they need to change the runway from being runway like 30 to being runway 31 because it's 10 degrees different with respect to the magnetic field.
Does it because of the wobble on the axis that disrupts the magnetic field, or is it just erratic?
It's its own thing. It's so the wobble of the Earth's axis, the precession of the Earth's axis, that goes on. The main sort of time scale for that is 26,000 years. Then there's another time scale that's even longer, I think, that like sort of beats with that. But the reversals of the Earth's like magnetic field and stuff, and apparently like reversals of the Earth's like internal rotation, which I would have thought was not like a thing that could reverse, that happens. We don't have a good handle on exactly why and when that happens. We can see, like, if you look at the Atlantic Trench as it's been spreading apart and separating the Americas from Europe and Africa. If you look down at the rocks will be like the magnets will be pointed all this in one way, and then they'll flip, and they don't flip in like a really nice, neat sort of pattern. So it's a fairly chaotic system that is not like entirely understood, but it is different from the precession of the Earth's axis. That does occur quite predictably over 26,000 years, and that's like what's responsible for the North Pole Star changing.
Yeah. Neat stuff. Thank you. Here we got the North Pole that looks exactly like that. Santa is probably, Santa's workshop is probably behind us in this picture, I would say, just judging from the barrenness.
Asymmetrical, so that the constantly moving north and south magnetic poles were not even antipodal, meaning a straight line drawn from one to the other failed to pass through the geometric center of their globe. To account for this, two more theoretical poles, known as the geomagnetic north and geomagnetic south poles, were also added into the convoluted mix. With this, after centuries of failed expeditions to the pole, the first decade of the 20th century would suddenly claim the discoveries of the northern magnetic pole, the southern magnetic pole, and shortly thereafter both the geographic and geomagnetic north and south poles as well. This turn of the century rush to the poles was not without its problems, however, and many explorers' supposed polar achievements during this
all these charlatans who monitored their quests to the North and South Pole.
Yep.
Totally full of it. You can't go north to Thule, right? Surrounded by a marshy, slimy. What was the sea that they had up there back in the old times? The age of exploration, they used to think there was a big murky, muddy sea beyond the northern coast of Europe. I don't remember what it was called, though. There's a name for it. And there's a land of Thule up there.
Huh.
Era are now regarded, even by mainstream historians, as being riddled with fraud and falsehoods. Before the alleged 20th century successes, many attempts were made to reach the North Pole during the 19th century, all of which failed. In 1827, knighted British...
Yeah, bringing wooden boats up into the Arctic Circle's not a good idea. It doesn't work out good.
Yeah, they crunch real easy.
To be fair, even with good icebreaker ships, you got to know what you're doing up there. It's pretty easy to get stuck.
I've seen videos and stuff of people trapped.
People underestimate just how hard an iceberg can hit. It is a literal mountain of ice. There's some serious mass being pulled around there.
Yeah,
right.
The iceberg is bigger than you. Or at the very least, it's bigger than you think. It's like hitting a moose with your car. Even if your car is somehow bigger than it,
it's not really bigger than it. Yeah.
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 Oh.
Doesn't help that the 90% of the iceberg is underwater.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and can you imagine how much less people would respect icebergs if it weren't for the Titanic?
Yeah, they would underestimate them for sure. The Titanic
even
is
more.
The reason people respect them for the extent that they do now is because of the Titanic. Without the Titanic, they'd be like, oh, it's just big floating ice chunks. Just push them away. Right? That's not a big deal, right? Why are you whining about icebergs? But no, they're mountains of frozen water and these. Could you imagine the horror of being in a wooden boat that gets crunched by this and you're stuck in the Arctic Circle, hundreds of miles from anybody?
It happened to a lot of explorers.
Yeah. Right? Oh, the realization that you are SOL, and then you can be eaten by a polar bear.
Royal Navy Rear Admiral Sir William Parry reached a record 82 degrees 45 minutes north latitude before being forced to turn back due to impassable thick ice. In 1845, another knighted British Royal Navy officer, Sir John Franklin, and his ill-fated two-ship 129-man crew all died during their attempt at the pole after becoming stuck in the ice, and everyone subsequently succumbing to starvation, hypothermia, tuberculosis, lead poisoning, zinc deficiency.
Yeah, this pretty for the
Yep.
thing for a lot of them. Yes. What do you do in that situation? Lay down on the ice and die because.
I hope you have a gun.
Yeah, for yourself or for the bear,
Yes.
Yes.
whichever comes first.
and or scurvy. In 1875, yet another knighted British Royal Navy officer, in fact, the Knight Commander of the Royal Order of Bath, Admiral Sir Albert Markham, made an attempt at the pole, reaching a new record 83 degrees 20 minutes north latitude before turning back due to rampant scurvy and lack of equipment. In 1895, Norwegian explorers Fridtjof Nansen and Hjalmar Johansen made a record-breaking 86 degrees 14 minutes north attempt before turning back because of lack of food and
Sorry,
supplies.
how long
It's
is he going
so-
to be going through this B tier reading of a Wikipedia polar exploration page?
He's got to explain to us how impossible it is to get to the North Pole by talking about how people during the Victorian era struggled with it. So obviously you can't do it now because they couldn't do it then. That's the case that's being made here. He's going to build up a long list of failures to say, see, it's impossible. You couldn't go to the North Pole. It's funny to hear him talk about the what's it, longitude and minutes and things about where their location is, considering
Yeah.
that those
they're willing to use all of these measurements, but like you don't.
of all the
Those
things that don't
measurements-
work on a flat Earth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then in 1899, Duke of the Abruzzi, member of the Royal House of Savoy, and Italian Navy Admiral Prince Luigi Amedeo set another record, just barely beating out the Norwegians, reaching 86 degrees 34 minutes north latitude before becoming stuck in the ice and losing 2 fingers to frostbite. Finally, on September 1st, 1909, Arctic explorer Frederick Cook became the first person in modern times to claim attainment of the North Pole when he cabled from the Shetland Islands after a 15-month trek back, alleging to have reached the pole on April 21st, 1908.
Alleging, because there's no
You
such thing
can't
as
reach the pole.
yeah. It's not a place you can actually go.
That day, the Evening Mail headlined, "Dr. Cook reaches North Pole," and the next day, the New York Herald headlined, "The North Pole is discovered by Dr. Frederick A. Cook, who cables to the Herald an exclusive account of how he set the American flag on the world's top." The news sent America and the rest of the world into a frenzy of media-fueled excitement, hailing Cook as a hero. Meanwhile, another Arctic explorer, U.S. Navy Admiral
So the American flag, isn't it always?
America.
Yeah.
Gotta be the first everywhere.
I get into like Facebook conversations with these people all the time, and that's one of the things that I don't get is like, because they're really proud to be Americans, right? But America's claim to fame is that we did all this shit. We went to the North Pole first. We went to the moon first. Blah 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 blah. But they don't believe in any of that shit. So what's so great about America then? Because it's shocking the number of the flat earthers that are just proud conservative American people. It's
Yeah.
I mean, Witsit has a Confederate flag on his truck.
It's nuts.
Oh, we're not doing inner Earth, Maya. Don't worry. You can still get you are still gonna get Dino's inner Earth virginity. Don't worry. I'm getting just I got Dino's Dubé virginity. This is Eric Dubé's North Pole adventure. Yes, there is this. So this one we're talking about here is one of the ones that's cited by the Hollow Earth people too. This exploration here, because this is the one that they allege is found the opening and that the aurora borealis spewed forth from the inside of the Earth, from the inner sun.
What?
Don't worry, Maya will take you on this journey, not me. So I'll let her handle that because that's what she really wants to. So what's the deal with Maya anyway? She'll do Hollow Earth, but not Flat Earth.
Yeah, no, it's unclear to me as well.
Where the line
I
is,
think
right?
Hollow Earth is even more nuts than flat Earth.
Yeah. You know, it'll be even
Yeah,
more nuts. Hollow flat Earth.
Oh, yeah. There are people who think that, I think.
Yeah.
but,
But
but what's under
there's
it?
it's layered like a cake. There's other Earths underneath. Yeah.
Oh, is that where hell is?
Yeah.
Maybe there's 9 layers. Ooh.
Admiral Robert Peary happened to be at that very moment traveling home from his own polar expedition. Just 5 days after Cook's cable, on September 6, 1909, Peary cabled from Labrador that he too had recently, quote, nailed the American flag to the pole on April 6, 1909, a year after Cook's claim. When informed of Cook's news, Peary cabled that Cook's claim, quote, should not be taken seriously, as he just stood atop the pole and found no trace of Cook or anyone else having been there.
Well,
On
if it was a
September
year,
7th,
if it was a year before, though, I mean, does he understand the
Buried in
Antarctic?
snow.
Yeah, Antarctic weather's a little bit.
I actually don't know how much it actually snows in the Arctic, though.
It snows
Is
more
it
than the
snowing in
Antarctic. The
Pretty
Antarctic's
sure
a
it's
desert.
a ton.
Because the
Well,
Antarctic
even
does
the
not get
Antarctic
much.
gets a ton of snow.
I don't
The
think so. I
Antarctic,
think
the
it's,
Antarctic doesn't get much snow. The Arctic gets snow though,
yeah, it just never goes anywhere.
and precipitation. But and there's a lot of when you're talking about the North Pole, you got to remember too that it's above water. So whatever ice that the previous dude stuck his flag in, and then there was
It could move.
in the seasonally when the ice thaws, it can move. It can move miles and no
Yeah.
longer
Yeah,
be in the
and-
North Pole again.
Huh. So I'll be damned. Apparently, Antarctica, the whole continent, only gets about 2 inches of precipitation a year,
Yeah.
Yeah.
whereas
It's like-
the North Pole gets 60 to 80.
Yeah, the South Pole's like the biggest desert.
Biggest
It's
desert.
bigger than the Sahara. It's just nobody thinks about it as a desert. It's
Yeah.
also the most unpopulous desert. Like there's no like least amount of organisms anywhere on the Earth is in Antarctica. On the not Little America side, but the far end where it's wider and expansive. There's also some crazy mountain ranges down there that do have some interesting mineral composition, right?
Yeah, and actually, one of my professors in college went down to Antarctica to study glaciers.
Wow, that's super cool.
the New York Herald headlined, Robert E. Peary, after 23-year siege, reaches North Pole. But to Peary's utter disappointment, his claim to be first to the pole was not widely accepted. Peary immediately sprang into action, obtaining and cabling confessions from Cook's Eskimo guides, making the Evening Telegram headline for September 8, 1909. Peary quotes Eskimos as saying Cook was not out of sight of land, and with this began a heated rivalry between two former friends and Arctic travel companions that would eventually end with both men and their polar attainment claims being completely discredited. Paul Simpson Housley wrote, "The claim."
So, and again, their exploration was a year apart. There's no reason why both of these men couldn't have had on their compass that they were at the North Pole when they landed there, and then stuck their flag in, right? And then over the season, the ice, as ice is wont to do, moved and flowed miles away, and then
Yeah.
the other guy came and put his flag and said, "I didn't see any traces of the previous explorer." There's no reason why we can't. Hey, Sumami, I'm glad you liked the thumbnail. I waffled over it a bit, but I think that it captured Doc's essence perfectly with the NASA jacket, especially. You wear your NASA
Yeah.
jacket often, right?
I wish I had a NASA jacket.
Yeah, we need to donate, do a fundraiser to get Doc a NASA jacket.
attainment of the
plan.
North Pole generated
I gotta stop saying Doc because you both go by fucking Doc. Good God.
I blame Doc Dino.
Yeah.
But
Hey, blame Kent Hovind then.
Yeah, I do. I totally blame Clint Hovind. Ew.
Aunt Jur asked, a good question. And the question was, how did they realize that they found the North Pole? To which I posited that it could be GPS, and then she was like, "Yeah, but this is before that." So I don't actually know how you would get a super precise measurement. You can do you could do things like star trails, because you're going to have, if you do a long time exposure shot, you're going to see the rotation, and if you're right at the pole, then the center of all of those circles that the stars trace out will be directly vertically above you. That would be one way. I don't know how precise you can get.
Hypothetically, couldn't you use the stars to figure out your location? Like, that's what they used to do on the ocean all the time.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you do use them for latitude. The question is, how precise do you want to get? Like, will that give you? Can you determine your latitude to within 1 second of arc?
I almost 100% guarantee that both of these gentlemen used a sextant and the stars to say that they were at the North Pole at the time that they did.
Yeah,
I can't think of any other that they would say, yeah, according to my sextant, I got it here and got all my lines, and then the stars, I'm right here and here, and combined those two. And there's probably like I would give anybody like maybe a 15 to 20 mile, maybe even a little bigger circle to say, yes, you're at the North Pole.
Since the North Pole migrates every day anyway.
Right.
Well, the North Magnetic Pole migrates a lot faster than the
geographic.
Yeah, the geographic North Pole. Because for the geographic North Pole to migrate, basically that requires the entire Arctic ice sheet to migrate, and it doesn't move that fast.
No, but that would also be part of what's going on here. Definitely could be between ice moving, water being, because the North Pole's over the ocean, right? It's not over land. There's no continent underneath the Arctic. It's just the Arctic Ocean.
The Arctic, yes. I mean, does Greenland go far enough north?
No, Greenland is not over the North Pole. I've looked into this a bit, but yeah, the North Pole's over water, so it's bound to move. Where you stand on the ice that you stand is bound to move. Maybe not a lot every year, but it's not going to be stationary. You got ocean currents under there, and the Earth's magnetic pole, the drag of the rotation of the Earth. All those things are going to factor into moving that around, but I'm sure there's a formula for figuring it out with a sextant, though.
Did enormous controversy and acrimony. Both Cook and Perry boasted that they were the first to reach the pole. Cook's North Polar Expedition, which dates from July 3rd, 19...
What's that?
What is acrimony? Like, is that high praise?
No, it's disagreement. An acrimonious interaction is one where you're fighting and being very disagreeable with the other person, for example.
Okay. I guess I just guessed high praise because acro means high, and I thought good
question. I don't know.
Ceremony or something.
It could mean high. It could mean high temper, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
It's usually like a debate about like compensation and stuff, right? Like an acrimonious debate is like, oh, you accidentally dug up my power cable. How much is it going to cost you to fix it? And then they go into dispute about that. It'll be an acrimonious engagement because the money is actually from money in that word, right?
Okay. I have no idea.
Yeah, and I think it's a dispute about compensation. Yeah, or accolades, I guess it could be too.
It certainly means ill feelings, though.
Yeah. Well, I only remember. Well, the reason I remember this is because when I was I just out of high school, right? I did satellite installs, and I remember the paperwork from it said, "Do not engage in acrimonious disputes with a tenant." And I was like, and the people I was in the class with were like, "What the hell is that? We don't know what acrimonious means." I'm like, Why did I expect these guys right out of high school to know this old English terminology?
1907 to September 21st, 1909, began from Gloucester, Massachusetts, and was sponsored by John Bradley. Cook visited Etah in northwest Greenland, and then proceeded north to Anoratoc.
Oh,
Here,
okay.
he became convinced.
Sorry, I did a Google. It's acrimonious with an I, like acrid. So it's like
Okay.
a bitter argument. I thought it was acrimonious with an O. That explains it.
I don't know if I would have been able to spell it. I'm bad at spelling. I know a lot of words that I don't know how to spell.
Yeah, fair.
Sumami said that the sextant will drive. Well, the sextant will drive or will guide us to the sexy time. Interesting. I want a sextant like that.
That he could reach the North Pole. Subsequently, he returned to Etah in order to prepare for the journey, and solicited assistance from Inuit. They advanced again to Anoratoc, and on February 19th, 1908, set out for the North Pole. Cook's route took him and his men via Smith Sound to Cape Sabine, to Flagler Bay, and then across Ellesmere Island to Bay Fjord. From there, they proceeded to Eureka Sound and established a camp.
Is he just reading like the Wikipedia article here?
Yeah, that's why I
Probably.
said it's like a B tier wiki reading.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel bad because the voice is part of the cringe of watching this, but I'm turning the speed up a little bit. What do y'all think, 1.25?
Yeah.
Camp at Cape Stalworthy,
least.
located at the northern extremity of Axel Heiberg Island, where most of his party remained. Cook himself set out for the pole with 2 Inuit, Awela and Etukashuk.
You ever think like the Inuits that these guys took out were like, why the fuck do these people want to go up there for? It's cold and there's not anything up there.
Yeah.
I mean, from what I've heard of a lot of guides in a lot of areas, yeah, but they're paying us.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like the Sherpas that take people to Mount Everest. Are like, what's wrong with these white people?
I also get it. I also get why you would want to go there. So, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to the Inuit, would they even, would they at the time? Because they had a very rooted and grounded way of life. They had to. It was a harsh existence, right? To just do something so hazardous for glory.
Yeah.
But we wouldn't explore anywhere if we didn't do that. I mean, we shot monkeys into space for how many decades? Just to prepare ourselves for that that age of exploration that for some reason
I
has
was
been
going to say,
stagnant.
for so many decades, we're still doing it.
Yeah. It's like, to be fair, we actually started sending people into space only a few years after we sent animals into space.
Yeah. You know, the Nazis were the first people to send any organism into the outside the Earth's atmosphere into space.
Oh,
I don't know what.
Did they do that on a rocket?
On a V2? Yeah.
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 Go figure.
Was it a suborbital platypus?
No, it was fruit flies. Fruit flies
Oh wow,
first.
so they cheated.
Yeah. And I don't think any of them survived. Nothing survived that until like the late 50s. Nothing survived breaking the stratosphere. But yeah, Werner von Braun, he was a brilliant man who broke us free from the grasp of this planet's gravity, or from its magnetism, because they're basically the same, right, Doc?
I hate you so much.
2 sledges and 26
They
dogs.
function
He insisted
similarly
that he
to
reach
one
the North
another,
Pole.
at least.
No, they don't.
Well, they attract 2 different bodies with greater intensity the closer they are.
One of them attracts or repels. Okay. And guess what? Even antimatter falls down. We figured that out like last month, for sure.
Did it
That
fall?
antimatter for sure falls. That was a question that I would have bet a huge amount of money that antimatter would fall under gravity, but it had not been, I think, unambiguously measured until like a month or 2 ago. The alpha experiment at CERN traps anti-hydrogen and then does like laser cooling on it. It's super awesome. It's super awesome. And finally they were able to get a cold enough sample that they could tell that when they released it, it mostly went down as opposed to going up because it was really hot. So it's like,
Sweetie, you had us at laser cooling. We're in. We're here. For
Yeah.
That.
Does it just burn off mass and the mass takes heat with it, or what?
Well, Oh no. So laser cooling is actually what I do. It's sort of it's very much in exactly my field of expertise. I'm an ultra cold atomic physicist. So what it does is photons have momentum. The momentum of a photon is Planck's constant divided by its wavelength, and it's a very small number. But they do have momentum, which means that if you have an atom and your atom is traveling in this direction with some speed, and it absorbs a photon from this direction, that atom will slow down a little bit. And then it releases that photon in a random direction. And then if you do that a bunch of times, suddenly this atom that was moving this way, you can stop it. And if you point a laser that does it that way, and you point another laser that way, and then you point another laser that way, and point another laser that way, and then you point a laser that way, and point a laser that way, right in the middle of all of those lasers, every direction that the atom is going, it's going against a laser, and it gets slowed down. So you can slow things down from room temperature, so in our lab we heat up a little oven of strontium, and we heat it up to 430 degrees. And it emits some like vapor of strontium. And then we use all these lasers and stuff to cool them down. And you can cool them down. The last time I measured the temperature of the atoms in my experiment, it cooled them down to about 2.5 microkelvin, which is like nuts cold. Like nuts cold. 1 microkelvin is 1/1,000,000th of a Kelvin. It's literally 100 million times colder. Yeah, and then you can go even another factor of 1,000 even colder than that. And I actually was spending the last week sort of figuring out exactly what other lasers in a different part of the experiment we would need to do in order to cool them down, even so that maybe we can get down into like the picokelvin regime. So yeah, basically it's about just pushing on the atoms in the opposite direction of where they're moving until they stop moving.
So is it, in order to get a physics degree, is it required for you to go partially insane?
Yeah, yes it is.
Okay, just checking.
Is it fun though? Is it enjoyable to go partially insane? Are you happy with that choice?
Well, yeah, you need one for a geo degree too.
That's all that matters. I like that you're living your best life within.
I am absolutely living my best life. I really am. I am living like exactly the life that I want to live. I am doing my dream job. I get to hang out with my friends like this on the weekends. I am an exceptionally fortunate person.
So, what is the person who does like geology, but studies the I don't know, plate tectonics or whatever on the moon? What are those people called?
Astroseismologists, maybe?
A lunar seismologist?
I'm pretty sure that's a thing.
Would be lunar geology.
It certainly would be. I don't think you might call it geo. Geo might explicitly the
geo is
prefix geo might mean Earth. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah.
So you would replace geo with lunar or whatever it would be, or
it would be seismology.
I'm pretty sure it would be astroseismology, because it would be like the study of tectonics on moons.
But astro means just stars, right?
What's Earth? Extra Earth bodies.
Yeah.
Extraterrestrial seismology.
No.
So it could be, it might be astro. It might be like lunar seismology would be a subfield, I feel like. You're right. Astro generally means like star, but it can also mean.
Well,
selenography is what Sumami says. That sounds pretty too. Selena, because that's Greek for moon,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's
So-
definitely like solar seismology is a thing. The seismology of neutron stars is a thing. Neutron stars, they spin really fast, and then they'll like shift, and they shift, and basically what's happening is that the neutron stars are made out of a whole bunch of layers of I'm not joking, nuclear pasta. The nuclear pasta, the layers of the nuclear pasta can like shift a little bit, and suddenly the rotational speed of the neutron star like glitches out for a moment, and so you can do seismology on neutron stars. It's nuts. The universe is so cool.
So, apparently, apparently Google or not Google, Wikipedia. It is selenography.
Boom.
Yeah. Tsunami
Some
rarely
moon
misses.
plus seismology.
Tsumami is clearly the smartest person in the room. Fantastic.
Tsunami
Yeah, that's neat.
rarely misses on any of these kind of things. Did you see my new top, by the way, Tsunami? Like, ooh.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it's open backed, but I've never worn open back before, so I got my bra on. It looks weird. It's kind of different.
On April 21st, 1908, Perry's polar venture occurred between July 6, 1908 and September 21st, 1909. It was sponsored by the Perry Arctic Club, and the party strived to reach the North Pole from Ellesmere Island. Perry's ships, the Roosevelt and Eric, collected 22 Inuit men and 17 Inuit women, in addition to 246 dogs in northwest Greenland. Winter quarters were at Cape Sheridan in northeast Ellesmere Island. After arriving there on September 5th, 1908, Perry transferred stores to Cape Columbia, located on the north of the island, and the selected place from which the assault on the pole was to be made. Perry's solar advance commenced in February 1909. Support parties led by Bartlett, Borup, Marvin, Macmillan, and Godsell.
Assault on the poles. They gotta make it sound epic.
Yeah.
You know, that's like a
Yahoo.
newspaper writer's idea of a description of exploration.
So
Whatever
they were doing the count of the people in the expedition, and they had something around like 35. It was around 35 Inuit, male and female, and then probably around a couple dozen or something, like white people or whatever, and then 200 dogs. 200. I guess you do need that many dogs to carry sleds for that many people. I was thinking, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like those dogs are food.
Yes, they're both.
Yeah.
Livestock.
That was their return meal.
Well, one of the first, what I remember is one of the first people that tried to cross the Antarctic plateau they forewent having dogs and tried to do it with horses.
Oh, poor fucking
Why
horses.
would she do that?
Why?
That's insane.
Oh, I wish I could remember whose expedition that was. He might talk about this southern expeditions here shortly. We're only 10 minutes into a 44-minute video.
Horses don't do snow.
Or ice.
They sweat so they can, cool themselves down even worse. Like, just no.
Even reindeer would have been a better choice than.
Way
Oh,
better.
they would have been a way better choice. I just don't know.
I think dogs are the best choice,
tamed.
but yeah.
I mean, they might as well have picked elephants to do it as far as horses go.
Woolly mammoths would be the
Mammoths
best
are
choice,
extinct.
potentially, if they had them available.
Well, apparently they were in Antarctica at this time.
Mammoths were in Antarctica?
Yeah, when you get to, you don't know about Admiral Byrd's expedition? Oh my! Do you know who
I'm
Admiral
sorry,
Byrd
what?
is?
I know who Admiral Byrd is, but I didn't think they ever found mammoth. The most recent living mammoths were on like Svalbard, I thought.
Wrangel Island. It's up there by Svalbard though. Yeah. No, in our reality they were, but apparently when Admiral Byrd flew over Antarctica, he saw mammoths.
He's a weird guy. Admiral Byrd is a weird person. Like
I gotta look it up. I don't even know if there are any mammoths from the southern hemisphere.
No, well, Colombian mammoths, South America.
I thought they were named that
is
because they were
mostly
discovered in the
is-
District of Columbia.
Also, isn't Colombia mostly
There's
north of the? of the equator?
Mammoths in South America.
Oh. According to Google, no, mammoths never made it to Australia or South America.
Huh.
Colombian
as
mammoths
far
did make
south
it to
as
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, because Colombia, was another word for like the Americas for a very
Yeah, the
long
whole
time.
Western
the
Hemisphere.
nation was almost called Colombia.
I like Colombia better, but I don't
I
like
mean,
Columbus
District of Columbia.
better. You know,
Yep.
but I thought that the Colombian mammoths extended down into Peru. I really did.
Oh.
So there were
Right.
no mammoths in the Southern Hemisphere, not North Africa either.
Well, even but again, the top half of South America is in the northern hemisphere. Technically.
Well,
according to
Africa
this,
too.
I will die on this. I will die on this hill.
Africa too, right? The Southern Hemisphere
Yes.
doesn't have very much land mass at all. The big part of Africa is in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah.
So apparently, Colombian mammoths were first found in Georgia, like
Georgia.
the state
America,
Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, and originally were named Elephas columbi after Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, Thomas Jefferson was like all about them being the biggest animal and wanted to prove that they were still alive. Did y'all know that? He told Lewis and Clark, he's like, watch out for some mammoths when you're out there, because he wanted to be able to boast that, because like Europe and stuff had elephants and things. He wanted to be able to boast that North America had big animals too, but nothing bigger
Okay,
than
but apparently some other
bison.
proposed name. Well, apparently other proposed names were E. Texianus, E. Imperator, and E. Jacksoni. Interesting.
No,
So-
oh, sorry. I was going to say, there's tsunami that the equator runs through like the middle of the Amazon and then the middle of the Congo. That's why and then Southeast Asia and the southern tip of India, I think, hits the equator too, doesn't it? So Florida,
India does not go that far south.
not that far
Does
south. There's
It gets closer than I thought, but it doesn't.
Does it get
it's
closer
not
than
quite
Florida?
That close. It gets way closer than Florida. Yeah,
But,
the
just-
southern tip of India is around Nicaragua, I think, roughly.
I know my latitude and longitude. If you got a number for
roughly,
me.
I think.
Like rough.
But-
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at Google.
Yeah, I guess just in summary, they are Colombian mammoths named for Christopher Columbus. So neat.
Yeah.
Had the task of carrying provisions.
And they could carry provisions, right? We could have Colombian mammoths carry provisions for us across Antarctica. That's the question.
You wouldn't want a Colombian mammoth. You'd want a woolly mammoth specifically.
Were the
Colombian mammoths were temperate to semi-cold weather specialists.
Yeah.
Woolly mammoths could tolerate the Arctic.
Yeah, that
But
was
this
their jam.
I mean they
Partially.
they would have been crossing glaciers and stuff in their own time, so you know.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
basically-
absolutely.
That's basically what this whole venture is. It's like crossing glaciers, but it's crossing
Yeah.
sea ice instead.
I mean, like a weird thing about the woolly mammoth that not a lot of people know, their blood has a protein, or had a protein, that acted as antifreeze.
Mm.
I did not know that. Did other Arctic mammals have this protein as well, like woolly rhinos, I wonder?
I'm not sure. I just know it has been found in woolly mammoths.
You could not use, by the way, chat, this is just for you guys. You could not use woolly rhinos to carry your stuff across the Arctic. It's not going to work. They're not the type of animal. I'm just telling you, for your Arctic expedition, don't go and try something silly like that.
They're not going to listen to you. They will
Yeah.
gore you.
Yeah. Rhinos are not nice. They're
No.
too dumb and they have too bad eyesight.
And there's no such thing as a woolly hippo, so you don't even
Well,
worry about that.
Actually, the
even
funny
worse.
thing is, rhino eyesight isn't that bad compared to most
thought it was.
mammals.
Oh, well,
It's-
compared
they're
to
just
most mammals,
super-
maybe, but as an absolute sense, like humans have really good eyesight along certain criteria.
Humans have by mammal standards,
Yes.
humans actually might have the best eyesight among most mammals.
It's almost like
It's
primates spending
right
a few 10 million years or so living in treetops, hunting insects, leaping through branches gave us really good binocular vision. I think what Doc was saying is, as far as artiodactyls in general go, right? Or Perseodactyl, as far as they go. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm pretty sure rhinos still have pretty good eyesight for artiodactyls.
They have better eyesight than a horse.
I don't know if it's anywhere. I don't know. But it's not that awful. They're just pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, if you see...
They're just aggressive animals. They'll run over a pride of lions if they get in their way.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that can really harm them is an elephant.
Were you guys sad about Elasmotherium?
I don't know what that means.
How it lost its horn?
Mm-hmm. So there was this giant...
I mean, it's not the first.
There was this giant Pleistocene rhinoceros, or I guess it was a rhinoceros. It wasn't its own genus, though, right? Anyway,
I don't know.
Anyway, it was huge, and it had what they speculated was a 6-foot-long horn, like a human-sized horn on its nose. But for the more recent research has shown it was more likely just a domed headbutting pad or whatever.
Yeah, which was pretty common for rhinos.
Yeah, more common than horns even. And
yeah, which, I mean, to be fair, like, just a bump on your head that you can swing around, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
And there's still, I mean, woolly rhinos still had a huge horn, bigger than any rhinos we have today, because they used it to clear snow. They'd like sweep it back and forth to clear snow out when they were grazing, because of the habitat they lived in on the Mammoth Steppe. How did we get on this topic? So weird.
You said use woolly, or don't use woolly rhinos.
Yeah,
gotcha.
We were discussing the right after we paused. I made the observation that those 200 dogs seemed like they were probably for food, and 10 minutes later, here we are.
Yeah, we discussed all the different animals you could have pack you across the. I wonder if camels would be good at.
Camels don't deal with cold too well. At least not sustained cold.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were there camels in the Pleistocene though that would have been
like I can imagine
possibly
like an Arctic version of a camel. That
I bet
doesn't
they would
seem
have shorter
insane
necks. I would expect.
Shorter necks and shorter legs probably, and a shaggier coat. Like I'm not going to rule it out, but I don't know if one has been found.
You know, I need to get like Donald Prothero on here and have talked to him about it. He just studies all kinds of rhinos and camels and stuff. He's actually like the lead writer on those topics now.
Purple raised a good point, though. There is one type of rhino I would totally bring on an expedition to the North Pole with me. Okay, and that's our friend Vice Rhino.
Yeah, I could take Vice Rhino.
I have yet to meet him, but he seems
I haven't met him either, but yeah.
Yeah, he's been coming up to bat for me a bit here on Twitter lately, so appreciate your Vice Rhino.
Talk to Maya, see if Vice Rhino will come on Bad Science Sunday.
Yeah, that'd be cool. All right.
Establishing a trail and providing igloos for Perry and Henson, who were to lead the assault on the pole. The support parties turned back. The last to do so was led by Bartlett, who retreated on April 1st, 1909, from latitude 87.47 north. Perry, Henson, and 4 Inuit continued their approach to the pole, which they claimed to reach on April 6th, 1909. A Cook-Perry controversy resulted. On September 2nd,
Everybody's going to claim here. He's not Eric's never going to give anybody credit with actually reaching the North Pole, just so we're clear.
Which is weird, because he thinks the North Pole exists.
Yeah. I think
he doesn't think the South Pole exists, but he thinks the North Pole exists.
He thinks it's unreachable, is what the impression that I get. Is he thinks that nobody can actually go there.
Claimed to have reached the pole. Perry's rival claim was submitted 4 days subsequently. So after centuries of unsuccessful, ill-fated attempts
Just
at the
say
pole,
4 days
within the
after.
space of just 4 days, 2 American explorers
Holy shit.
claimed to be the first successes.
Yep, 4 days.
That
Well,
does
no,
happen.
it's just like the choice of words. 4
Yeah,
days
subsequently.
subsequently. Just say 4 days after. Don't be pretentious. Just
Or-
talk.
Yeah.
It's Dubé. Pretentious is his middle name.
It's the Dubé
Cook's
way.
journal description of his heroic arrival at the pole reads more like a piece of poetic fiction than an actual experience, however, which has raised questions from skeptics. He wrote,
And again, this is the guy who will believe the Admiral Byrd diaries and stuff. He's gonna say, "Oh, this guy's being poetic about this." But when Admiral Byrd's telling a story about Nazi spacecrafts attacking them in the over the Antarctic plateau, it's totally realistic. With UFOs,
I have
Nazi
yet to
UFOs.
hear this claim, but I hate it.
Bird is weird. Bird is
We
a weird
almost-
character because Bird objectively did some pretty impressive stuff, even if they didn't do as much as they claim to have done. But it was peppered in with just bonkers claims.
Okay, well, sounds like we do need to do an Operation High Jump episode of this. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. We need to put that in the books because that's what we're talking about. Is Admiral Byrd was Operation High Jump. He flew over the first part. He was the first person to fly over the South Pole.
That's probably where he left the Lindbergh baby.
But
What?
he had there was these chroniclings of his journey where he talks about seeing woolly mammoths and being apprehended by Nazi UFOs and escorted to a secret base. He had a conversation with somebody named the Master about human progress. It's really, and Eric Dubé laps it up like a little kitten, but he's gonna be suspicious of this guy saying he reached the North Pole, which Eric believes
Are we
exists.
sure he just wasn't trying to practice his fiction writing while suffering
That's the
from
way
frostbite?
That's the way it comes across to me. Is that, well, he's published later in his life that maybe he was trying his hands at fiction as he got older. Writing fictionalized versions of his explorations and stuff.
I mean, to be fair, I'd probably do that, actually. Like a semi-fictionalized biography, make him wonder what's real and what isn't. That sounds fun.
constantly
I said,
and
yeah,
carefully,
exactly.
I
He
watched
might have
my
been
instruments.
trolling.
What's that? Oh, Bird. Yeah, maybe he was trolling. Yeah.
I would totally do that. I would totally do that.
These people pay me, and they actually believe this shit. Holy crap.
In recording this final reach. Nearer and nearer they recorded our approach. Step by step my heart filled with a strange rapture of conquest. At last, we step over colored fields of sparkle, climbing walls of purple and gold. Finally, under skies of crystal blue, with flaming clouds, we touch the mark. The soul awakens to a definite triumph. There is sunrise within us, and all the world of night-darkened trouble fades. We are at the top of the world. The flag is flung to the frigid breezes of the North Pole. The first realization of actual victory, of reaching my lifetime's goal, set my heart throbbing violently and my brain aglow. I felt the glory which the prophet feels in his vision, with which the poet thrills in his dream. I saw silver and crystal palaces, such as were never built by man, with turrets flaunting pinions glorious golden. The shifting mirages seemed like the ghosts of dead armies, magnified and transfigured.
Now this does just sound like he's being colorful about describing the landscape.
This actually sounds like the climax of an adventure novel. I'm actually here for it.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
It's nice writing, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's stirring, and it should be. I mean, this was the culmination. Plus, given even in the middle of summer, which is, I'm sure, when they would have done this, the sun is never going to be over your head. It's always going to be at an angle, and it's going to be 24/7 daylight, and you are going to get sort of a weird purplish. Yeah, you're going to get purples and pinks and reds and blues and oranges all over it. It would be surreal.
Yeah,
right time of year, you might
absolutely
get some aurora
stunning.
too. That'd be beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you imagine being the
Does that
first person
do
to
much with the time of year?
the aurora? I think at the certain times of years it's
think-
definitely stronger. But
I thought it was like a constant thing.
I thought, yeah, I think they'd be more visible in the nighttime because the light from an aurora is not particularly bright, and it's done by it's solar weather that causes it. It's solar wind weather. Like you get a coronal mass ejection or a solar flare or something that spits a lot of stuff, like electrons and protons, just spits a lot of them at us, and then that gets sort of like steered by the Earth's magnetosphere. Because, as chat likes to point out, gravity is basically magnets. Wait, no.
yeah,
No, that was someone else.
Nope, you can't take it back now.
Huge
Continue
and
on.
spectral, moving along the horizon,
clip.
and bearing the wind-tossed phantoms of golden blood-stained banners. I was at a spot which was as near as possible, by usual methods of determination, 520 miles from Svartavoig, a spot towards which men had striven for more than 3 centuries, a spot known as the North Pole, and where I stood, first of white men. Perry's journal description of his arrival at
Well,
the pole
White
sounded more
man.
down to earth and believable.
He said the quiet part out loud, Pa.
Well, yeah, but
Well-
honestly, props for that, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not denying someone else could have done it. It's just as far as he knows, he's the first.
I've asked about this before. I remember. So my dad was a mountain climber, and before he died, I asked him once. He would always have loved to have climbed Mount Everest. He never did it, but I was like, "Do you think anybody ever did that beforehand?" And he was like, "Honestly, the amount of preparation that you need to do for like a successful summit of Everest, you have to really, really, really want to, and you have to have all these resources and stuff. I find it unlikely that there was anybody before the modern era who actually did make it to the North Pole. Everest is a little bit, I think, easier to believe, but I could be wrong. I don't know.
I actually have a question about this alleged picture, and I say alleged picture of the North Pole because I do think this is alleged. Where are they getting these rocks from?
Yeah.
The North Pole's miles out to sea.
Depends on the glacier, because glaciers can wander. They pick up a ton of rocks, and they can melt out on the surface.
So there could be like rocky patches on the surface of a glacier over sea ice.
Yeah, but
I
glaciers
believe
feed
so.
into the
If
sea.
it
They don't
originated
just-
on land, yes.
But the nearest land is Greenland. It's like 500 miles away. How far is it actually?
There's some
Well, I mean,
little
if a
islands
glacier
out
lasts for if a glacier can last for 50,000 years, it only has to move a few inches a year.
There's nothing under it. A
They can still
glacier
move.
just on water isn't a glacier. It's an iceberg.
It's just sea
Well,
ice.
Okay, yes. Sorry. So glaciers can form on land or in shallow bodies of water and be pushed out as more ice forms behind them. They'll continuously be pushed out, forming icebergs.
Yeah,
So,
I'm with you there. So
it
glaciers
can
are
happen.
basically like sea, like rivers of ice flowing towards the sea, and they hit the sea. They're still carrying the debris with them, right?
Yes,
where we're-
they would.
that's where we're-
and
okay.
we see this in the rock record, actually.
And it would have had to carry this much for this to be in the. I feel like I'm a conspiracy
It
theorist
absolutely
now
can happen.
to question this image, but I've seen this image before, and I never even thought about it. I was just like, thinking about it while this was up on the screen, and we hadn't gone off on a tangent. It never would have popped in my head. But where are these freaking rocks coming from? So,
I mean, here, if I can share my screen.
Yeah, you sure can.
So this is so when it pops up, this is an ice field in Juneau. So this is a glacier going down through the mountains towards the sea, and all of those dark lines, that's rock from the surrounding mountains. The glacier is going to carry it all the way to the ocean.
And
It's going to get stuck in the rock, and if the ice doesn't melt, it can hold on to it for as long as the glacier lasts. I actually am pretty sure there are still icebergs in the North Atlantic that formed on land that are still dropping rocks to this day.
Into the North Atlantic. Okay.
Yes.
Dropping. So would these flows go north though towards the North Pole from land?
Let me see if I can
I
find a map
feel
of
like-
glacial flow directions.
And my feelings don't amount for jack shit, but I feel like that glaciers would flow southward from the North Pole. I don't feel like that they would flow northward, but I could be mistaken.
They flow downhill, I think.
Yeah. Oh, and
But climate
so
does
I've-
come into when something as complex as glacier mechanics. Though climate comes into play because they move so slowly, right?
So this is from it's a map of ice sheet movement directions. And yeah, they basically so these so the Keewatin up here where it's spreading out, that's an ice dome. Ice domes form and glaciers move out away from them. So they absolutely could flow north. Like
Now,
they
this
follow
is
the same laws as
glacier
water does.
maximum, right?
Yeah.
What we're looking at here. Okay.
But this is just mapping the stuff we have on land. That doesn't go. It doesn't cover what happened in the ocean.
It's harder to keep track of that because it doesn't leave us static of a record as you get on land, because the currents and tides and stuff are a little stronger than the winds and rains.
Yeah.
All right.
But-
Let's see.
Yeah. Just I guess just like main point. I can believe they found rocks out there.
Yeah.
Any though? That's a lot.
Depending
Yeah,
on the
that's cool.
glacier, man.
Believable, but doubt would soon be cast over his claims as well. He wrote, "The pole at last, the prize of 3 centuries, my dream and goal for 20 years, mine at last. I cannot bring myself to realize it. It seems all so simple and commonplace. While we traveled, the sky cleared, and at the end of the journey, I was able to get a satisfactory series of observations at Columbia Meridian midnight. These observations indicated that our position was then beyond the pole. In a march of only a few hours, I had passed from the western to the eastern hemisphere and had verified my position at the summit of the world. It was hard to realize that on the first miles of this brief march, we had been traveling due north, while on the last few miles of the same march, we had been traveling south. Although
That would be kind of mind blowing now. You've been
Yeah.
walking north.
Yeah.
So I had this conversation once with my advisor in grad school. He's gone to conferences and stuff all over the world, but he's never actually done a circuit. His winding number, as it were, is 0, and most people's winding number is 0. The number of times that you've actually gone around the North Pole, and you're not counting the rotation of Earth doesn't count. But if you go up to the North Pole, you can just run in a circle, and then you could get your winding number up as high as you want, and then
You
you
really
could
have,
win
the
every
highest-
single game of Never Have I Ever.
You definitely can make sure you have the highest number of anybody ever.
Yeah, exactly.
That'd be something
we
to
had
put
all
on
the
a
time
Tinder
been traveling
profile.
precisely in the same direction. In traveling the ice in these various directions, as I had done, I had allowed approximately 10 miles for possible errors in my observations, and at some moment during these marches and countermarches, I had passed over.
I definitely give a 10-mile error margin for the freaking North Pole, especially
Back then, yes.
Yeah, for the early 20th century.
Nowadays, I would give 10 feet.
Yeah,
I'm not joking. I mean, the GPS, the GPS on your phone. Well, okay, your phone might have trouble at the North Pole. I'm not really sure, but a phone built for that, your GPS can get you to within millimeters if you give it enough averaging time. Generally, walking around, you're not going to get millimeters, but 10 feet, yeah, you should be able to figure out where you are within 10 feet.
2 meters or 3 meters. Yeah, 10 feet, 3 meters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think that they say is the golden standard for the high end GPS.
or
think
very
that
near
was
the
back in
point
the-
where the North
yeah.
and South and East and West blend into one. Thus, starting in September 1909, a huge public debate fueled by the newspapers raged over who was truly first to the North Pole, with the New York Times showing unwavering support for Peary and the New York Herald doing the same for Cook. The demand of proof in the
So this is kind of like the Bone Wars of the North Pole exploration.
Sounds like it, honestly, yeah.
And because they used to be
Man.
friends too, just like was it Copen? Was it Walsh?
Copenmarsh.
Marsh. Yeah,
Oh, and
Walsh.
by the way, if anyone's curious, Marsh won. He won the Bone Wars.
Poor Atheniel. Oh, can you?
The form of navigational records was issued and subsequently avoided by both sides. Cook never produced any detailed original navigation records to substantiate his polar claim, and on December 21st, 1909, after examining what little evidence Cook did submit, a commission at the University of Copenhagen ruled there was no proof he had reached the pole. Cook's Inuit guides would also testify in handwritten documents that during their final push for the pole, they actually traveled south, not north, and never once did they travel out of sight of land. Meanwhile,
Yeah, got to get your own Inuit guides throwing you under the bus here, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do
Should
like
have
that
paid him more.
that they're using the term Inuit though. I was expecting them to say the E word, which they tend to say in these old news reports.
It's certainly
Perry
from Eric
outright
Dubay.
refused to submit his record.
What's that?
Certainly from Eric Dubay. I mean,
He did say it earlier.
Did he?
That's a thing. I can imagine myself making that mistake. I know it's like not the right word, but I didn't know that until, further along in my life than I should have.
That's like the Romani people too. I was just talking to Sumami
Yeah.
about this a couple weeks ago that it's hard to break yourself of saying that word.
It's really hard, yeah.
And I used to do this. One of my favorite Simpsons quotes was from Homer Simpson saying that something wasn't real. It was like leprechauns and then the E word. And it's like, and I used to think it was the funniest thing because they are real and Homer's just dumb and thought that Inuit people didn't really exist, that they were magical like leprechauns. So I used to always say that to my kids about silly stuff. And then they go, oh, Inuit people are real. Or whatever, and when I'd say it, and it was funny. Now I feel like I've been saying a dirty joke to my kids this whole time, like a racist joke to my kids. But I didn't know that.
I get what you're saying, but at the same time, like, languages change, and you can't really help that. And you grew up in a time where it wasn't a bad thing, so you were fine just saying it. Like it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it should be held against you, I guess. Like, it's fine. It's whatever.
Give yourself time, a break every now and then to make mistakes in your past self to make mistakes. And well, I didn't think it was a mistake, honestly, because as far as I knew, it was the proper terminology at the time.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. You didn't know better.
Yeah, just like the G word for the Romani people, I thought it was the proper terminology to use for years and years. I thought that it was a title that they held with pride. It actually comes from they thought that they were from Egypt, that their ancestors were Egyptian, is why they called them that. But anyway.
I mean, like it's a complicated subject, especially since some groups, like, they're just like, yeah, we've been called this for so long, we've kind of just accepted it. Go ahead. That's how we'd prefer to be called. I've heard that not an insignificant number of Native American tribes people feel about that. Just call us Indians. You've been doing it.
There is a reason that the Bureau of Indian Affairs has not changed its name. It's actually yes, a lot, not all, categorically not all, but a lot. There are sizable portions of the Native American or American Indian community that prefers American Indian to, because that was the word that they sort of first united under in their identity as the First Nations people against
Yeah.
And to be
So,
fair, these just like when they named anything else after another old landmass, there's no reason why you can't say they didn't name the West Indies, and then they can say the
Yeah.
so they're the West
And I mean,
Indians. For the
I guess just in summary, like if you're not sure, ask them what they prefer,
yeah.
and just go with that.
I like native
Exactly.
or indigenous people. Native or
Mhm.
indigenous is fine. I've if you're watching Robert Zephyr, he'll use primitive people. Do not use that.
Oh, do not use that.
Robert Sepper is a trash human being on every level, and if you haven't watched Gutsick Gibbons' like multi-hour just obliterations of this man, do it. It's great fun.
Yeah.
Like,
And,
how subtly racist can I be to everyone that's not white?
and then say I'm just citing data. It's just the science. It's like, what are you talking about? That's not how science works.
Records for the Copenhagen Commission, forcing them to also conclude a lack of proof for his claim. Cook later alleged to have kept copies of his sextant navigation data.
Purple says they like that she likes First Nation. I think the Canadian indigenous populations prefer that as well. I'm not sure about what they prefer.
That's what
in
I've
Latin
heard.
Countries.
Yeah.
I think in Latin countries they still like to go by their old tribe names, like.
That is the most preferred in my experience. In my conversations with people that actually belong to a tribe, they would prefer to be known by that.
Yeah.
But then you have to figure it out, and so
But not doing that is as rude as just referring to somebody, because Africa, for instance, Africa is like 64 countries, isn't it? 64 countries in Africa. And to say someone's African is about the dumbest thing you can say. There's only 3 countries in North America, and you don't ever hear anybody say someone's North American. You're either American, which is USA, or Canadian or Mexican, right? But
I have heard the term American referring to somebody from the Americas, both of them.
Yeah.
That actually is a term
America
that I do
too.
hear. Yeah, South America, even South America's.
In South America, they consider it one continent. The Western world is one continent. Yeah, that's how they're educated too. I think other countries as well, which is super weird because why consider Europe and Asia as 2 separate continents, but South America and North America are the same one? What?
The only reason to think of them as 2 separate continents is they don't want to be thought of as the same.
It's ethnocentric, right?
Yeah.
So
that's why Russia's so bitter. Go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry.
Semi-controversial take I have. I'm not a huge fan of Latinx. Like, since we're on the topic of calling groups of people things. And as, like, in my experience, every Latino I've talked to has had the same opinion. Like, it's just how the language works.
That's going to apply to all Romantic languages too, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion either way on that. I think it. I'm not in a position to have a strong opinion on it as far as I'm concerned.
Fair.
Let that population decide what they'd like to be called. Because I'm part of a demographic that people would still call trannies if they could. And I think that the people who are getting called that should definitely have the final voice to say, hey, don't call me that. And if they don't want to be called Latinx, that's fine. There's some places that becomes problematic, but we'll get into a whole shit show of discussion about linguistics if we do that. Like, I don't think someone should be able to say, oh no, you can't call me a homo sapien. Or I get annoyed when you were talking to like a creationist, right? And they're like, oh, don't say I'm that I came from monkeys. I've actually got my post flagged and taken down for telling someone that yes, you are an ape. That's considered
and
hate speech.
Is that because of the racial connotations that it unfortunately has?
Potentially, you're saying they're a monkey or anything like that. People that were monkeys, or telling someone that yes, you
I'm
are
just
a
saying
monkey.
there
Yeah,
there are connotations with the phrase.
yeah, and they lean heavy into that when they flag you for it. That's what they're trying to spin it as. What I'm just trying to teach them some science.
Yeah.
And I'll even use like because I'll put I don't ever just like say oh you are a monkey. I'll put up like a cladogram and say oh you are a monkey. Here's monkeys circled anthropoids and then say here's you. You are a monkey. But and then they flag me. It's weird. I've seen R and Ra get flagged like that too
Yeah.
on Facebook.
And in 1911 published some, only to be exposed as having an incorrect solar diameter during his calculations. The National Geographic Society held Perry's papers for decades, refusing researchers any access to them, and when finally independently examined, were also shown to be lacking. The released documentation listed only 3 solar observations without giving the date, no mention of which limb of the sun Perry observed, and claimed the star Betelgeuse was present.
Ooh, that's a way that I didn't even think about proving that
That
you're at the
can't be
North
true.
Pole.
Betelgeuse
Hey,
is
what'd
not
you
going to
say?
be visible at the North Pole in the summer. Orion
It
is
won't be?
only visible in the northern hemisphere during the winter. Orion is a
Oh.
winter constellation in the northern hemisphere. You're not going to see Orion. I'm pretty sure I could be wrong, but you're not going to see Orion or any of the stars in Orion at the North Pole in the summer.
But wait,
And you're not
Orion
going to
like
go to the North
Orion's
Pole in the
belt?
winter.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's a winter constellation in the northern hemisphere, and you're not doing Arctic explorations in northern hemisphere winter. You're just not doing it.
And
Well, just
it's,
I'm
it's-
pretty sure I've seen Orion's belt in the summer. Like it used to be like my favorite constellation to point out because I could actually find it.
I could be wrong, but I think it's a winter, like not just in the dead of winter, but like I don't think it tends to be, or it's very much at the like lower level. All of this is on.
I think
a
maybe
spectrum.
Orion is really low on the at this latitude anyway. Really
Yeah.
low on the horizon in the winter. Maybe higher in the summer.
And I mean, we're probably all at roughly the same latitude in like the low 40s, I think, mid 40s.
Yeah.
So you have to go an entire another, like, we're a quarter above the equator, roughly. You have to go twice as far to get to true north. I don't think you're going to see Orion. But
Yeah, I wonder if we can get like a star map from the North Pole pulled up. What do you boys want to see about that? Like
yeah.
3D star map? That'd be cool. I'll let the video play though.
When it could not have been detected by a sextant during that time of year. Perry never produced records of compass readings, observed data for steering, for his longitudinal position at any time, and for the final stage in his expedition, never took latitudinal or transversal readings, and had no accompanying colleagues trained in navigation who could confirm or deny his work. Even though Cook's own navigational data was found to be flawed, he would still publicly criticize Perry's alleged sextant reading.
So when I say it's flawed, how flawed is it? How far was he from the true North Pole? That's my question to this, because if he was within a 25-mile, 30-mile range of it, I'm gonna be charitable and say that yeah, you reached the North Pole, my friend, because that's close enough for me. It's not going to be a 10-foot square that if you're not standing in it, you didn't reach the North Pole. It's going to be a region, right? That's just my opinion. But like Tap said earlier, today I would say no. You got to be within this like little circle, this little 3-meter circle, or you're not at the North Pole.
Ratings stating, Mr. Perry's polar claim rests upon the impossible observations of a sun at an altitude of less than 7 degrees above the horizon. The 3 armchair geographers.
That's one of the measurements that we didn't talk about too. Measuring the height of the sun on the horizon as throughout the day would be a good way to, because the sun should go like this, like over the horizon throughout the day. I've seen time lapses and stuff of it. Really cool. It does like figure eights and things. And
Seldom out of reach of dusty bookshelves passed upon these worthless observations. Not one out of 100,000 honest sexton experts would credit such an observation as that upon which Mr. Perry's case rests, not even in home regions, where for centuries tables for corrections had been gathered. Not only were Cook and Perry's testimonies dubious and navigational records unsatisfactory, but the
Chad, I have no idea how many states Mexico had. I almost cut the number of countries Africa had in half before I thought about it. So,
I think it's like 34 or something.
for
I
Mexico,
have no idea.
yeah. How many
Wait,
provinces does Canada have? It's like
13?
11? 13? Is it 13?
I have no idea.
I don't know. I think it's in the teens.
How many can we
claimed on
name?
their final pushes to the
Ooh, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Labrador, Nova
Alberta,
Scotia.
Quebec, Ontario.
You said Nova Scotia. So Labrador, Quebec, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Saskatchewan.
Alberta.
British Columbia.
I think I already said Alberta, but I'm not. British Columbia. Isn't there like is the
Prince
Northwest
Edward
Territories
Island
one?
or whatever. Prince Edward Island, is that a
I have no idea.
province?
I'm pretty sure Canada is a fake place though. So
Yeah. Well, it's just part of Britain anyway, right? They're just British people. The British people that eat syrup.
poll were also incredulous. Cook recorded on the 4th and 5th days before his support party left that even with full sledge loads, he was able to traverse 29 and 22 miles respectively those days, around double their usual distance covered. Yet his Inuit guide, Etukashuk,
We all passed right over. Did we all pass right over Winnipeg?
probably I don't even. I mean,
Yeah.
That's probably
Is
that's
Van-
where Donnie
Vancouver
lives.
is just a city. It's not also a province, right?
Yeah,
Vancouver.
Vancouver's just a city in British Columbia. But yeah, Winnipeg is where Donnie Deals can be located. As far last I knew. So I don't know what city, but I know he's in Winnipeg.
Is Victoria one?
Victoria, isn't
I
that in
don't
Australia?
think so, but that sounds correct. I mean, Australia, Canada, what's the difference, right?
Yeah, we all went to American school. Can you tell?
I never left.
True.
I bet people we're causing our fans out there to groan now. They're like, stick to the science. You guys suck at this.
claimed that they remained in the same place for 2 nights. Polar
Oh, we also forgot none of it. I can't believe we forgot none
So
of
we
it.
got
That's the First Nation province. Saskatchewan. New Brunswick. I never would have got that one. New Brunswick. That doesn't even sound like a real name. Brunswick? Come on. Sounds like a vacuum. A vacuum.
I'm
cleaner
with
company.
Spooky. I'm with Spooky. Spooky says Narnia.
Narnia, British Columbia. The Yukon. That's a place.
Yeah.
I think we got them all. I think we did. Go chat. High fives all around. Come on. Get your little claw up here, Doc.
Boom. There we go.
Go.
researcher and author Randall Oskazewski, in his book Frederick Cook and the Forgotten Pole, wrote that Cook had needed to invent additional mileage to make up the distance he said he had covered in reaching the pole, and to bring him back to land on a reasonable date. Some of this padding is found in distances claimed for days when they did not travel, but some could have been created by simply changing the units. Since his mileage figures came from a pedometer, it is likely that he originally recorded these figures as statute miles. Pretending that they had really been nautical miles would add 15% to the distance. Perry's supposed speeds during his final push to the pole were
Now, 15 degrees is too far off for me to consider to actually get to the North Pole.
Not remotely close. Yeah, you're not remotely close. That's if you're 15 degrees off the equator, like you're just obviously not. That's not.
You're
remotely
not at the
close.
equator, yeah. If you're 15, I think if you're 15 degrees off of the North Pole, you're still like in the Baffin Islands in Canada.
Yeah. Being 15 degrees off is like getting when the sun sets wrong by an hour.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because of the 15 degree per hour drift rather. Thanks, Bob.
Nanook of the North. Did they make Nanook of the North?
even less believable than Cook's, allegedly averaging up to an implausible 71 miles per day. His last 5 marches, while accompanied by experienced navigator Captain Bob Bartlett, averaged no more than 13 miles per day. Once his last supporting party turned back and Captain Bartlett was ordered southward, Perry's...
There we go. Titan give us some markers. 23 degrees off is the tropic latitude. So yeah, that's how. So from the Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn to the equator is 23 degrees, to give you an idea how far off being 15 degrees off would be.
Yeah. Is it 23.5? It's 23.6, right? Because it's basically it's the same as the drift. It's important. It's important because if you subtract that from 90, the Earth's tilt is 66.6 degrees. Hail Satan.
Huh. 66.6 degrees.
His alleged speeds immediately doubled for the next 5 marches. Then, Perry claimed during the final 8 days that his speed quadrupled from a base camp to the pole and back, covering...
I could have put your all's faces on this picture for... I like how there's penguins when it's the North Pole. That's my favorite part. So you know that this wasn't actually a period painting because they wouldn't have had penguins in the North Pole.
Yeah, right.
An argument can be made that these are supposed to be puffins, but puffins have a distinct gait where they're have a more natural bird-like stance where their head's forward. Not as much as most birds, but more so than the upright stance of a penguin. Puffins are very distinct too, and they can fly. These are definitely supposed to be like South Pole penguins here.
296 miles, 198 of them in just 4 days, giving an average of 49 miles a day. This figure, however, is before factoring many more miles of admitted detours due to navigation errors, drift, avoiding pressure ridges, and open water leads, which critics claim bring the figure closer to 71. No other explorer before or since has ever claimed such ridiculous speeds. Polar researcher and author Paul Simpson Housley wrote in his The Arctic Enigmas and Myths that those records failed to confirm that Perry reached his goal, and such observations could certainly have been faked. Perry fails to provide a detailed account in his diary. Moreover, he should have presented a well-kept log of his final approach that included checks on compass variation and on his latitude and longitude made by providing altitudes of the sun, planets, and stars at various locations. Polar pack ice is difficult terrain to traverse. The ice drift deviates from wind direction to the right by 28 degrees to 30 degrees in the northern hemisphere at a speed of 1/50th of the wind force.
Shit! He's acknowledging...
No in either his diary...
Sorry, my hand's busy for a second there. He's acknowledging all the drift stuff that we were talking about for the reason why the one gentleman couldn't find the other gentleman's marker. He just acknowledged all the little factors right there. Eric is making our argument.
Are you expecting self-consistency here?
Internal consistency? No, that's too much.
That's not how this works.
Yeah.
That's a Satan tactic.
Did you guys, speaking of Satan, did you guys watch last weekend's show when I had Ryan and Maya on? So much fun. We delved into some Satan.
I was late because I'm not the whole Creation Watch being on Sundays, which for the record, chat, if you don't know, that is the new time for Creation Watch, right? Bree?
Tentatively, I'm seeing how it works. I don't have. Yeah. I haven't hammered down anything. I know that Sundays is when the ACA used to do or does all their shows and things. I know a lot of people aren't big on the ACA anymore, so giving them a network of shows to watch on Sundays as an alternative to that, yeah, let's do it. So I figure I'd do an afternoon slot, and maybe. Ember's going to be more consistent on doing an evening slot too. I don't know for sure what their plan is, but then Maya does the evening slot. So giving people an alternative to some of the more mainstream Sunday atheist content was kind of my idea here. So if you like this time slot, let me know in the comments because I'm enjoying doing it, but I know that weekends aren't always the best time to get the most people together, especially on a Sunday. So we'll see how it works out.
Or published reports. It is highly likely that he would be propelled to the left of his 70-degree meridian. His desire to reach the pole was certainly in excess of his intent to produce records. In addition, Parry's chronometer displayed an error of 10 minutes, and this would have influenced his heading. More doubt would eventually be cast on both Cook and Parry through public scrutiny. In 1906, Cook had previously claimed himself the first man to reach the summit of the tallest mountain in North America, Mount McKinley.
See, Maya, we weren't American schools. We were Mexico. Who cares about Mexico? There's just that's a third world dirt hut country or mud hut country was the way that that our education system described it. So we didn't care what their province is. They taught us Canadians because they were other white people, right?
I will say,
my school wasn't taught that, but okay.
yeah, me neither.
What's that?
I was not taught that Mexico was like, I was not taught that Mexico was a third world country. I was not.
I was, yeah. It was.
I was not.
Like,
it was sort of, third world is an archaic term that I shouldn't use anyway. But
yeah.
Mexico has in my education always been one of the more developed developing countries. I guess would be also a problematic way of putting it. But
yeah. Well,
but to defend us for knowing all of the provinces in Maple Land a little bit, just bare minimum. The primary language of Canadians is, well, I guess French, but it's mostly English, but then there's French, whereas there's a lot less English being spoken in Mexico. So in terms of, crossover of general cultural knowledge, it's not that surprising.
Man, you all make me feel like my education was so archaic and barbaric. What year did you guys graduate?
From high school?
High school, yeah.
2010.
2019.
Okay, I graduated in 2002. So, and I'm talking about my junior high education in the early 90s when we were doing, there was a lot of mudslinging about, what was it, NAFTA and stuff like that. Trying to we're making all these pacts to help support these third world or these, because it was all all of Central America was poised to benefit from NAFTA more than anybody else. But people hated that because they were brown people that lived in mud huts. So, God, I didn't realize you were that much younger than me.
I turned 32 on Wednesday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Yeah. I guess what I'm doing on Wednesday besides
what are you doing?
32. I'm getting I have a dentist appointment for a deep cleaning.
You should get a colonoscopy too, make it a whole thing.
I don't know why I did that to myself. That's what happens when you don't go to the dentist in over 10 years. It's been 10 years since I went to the dentist, and I had an appointment last week, and they were like, yeah, you need to start flossing. Your brushing is good job, but you need to start flossing more. And we're going to need to get you back in here to scrape all that tartar off. So don't be like me. Don't be like me, Chet. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. I hope that you guys picked up on my sarcasm about Mexico being mud huts. I don't actually think that. I'm saying that's what.
Of course not.
Of course not.
What rural Missouri school systems were allowing to be said about Mexico, and not just Mexico. It was about any place south of the Mexican border. All of it from Mexico to Argentina. It was all. They're all. Brown people in mud huts to these folks around here. Sad. Well, they were back then, as you can tell from Doc being in the same general area, or I should say Doc Dido being in the same general area as me. There has been some progress in our small town school systems here, which is great to understand. Yeah. Well, 2019. So I think that you all probably benefit a lot from your stuff being on digital media, whereas we actually had textbooks that we had to use when I was in junior high.
Okay. Poor small town, middle of nowhere, Iowa. I had textbooks from the late 80s.
Okay, Sam, we did too. That's where these messages were coming from too. We had stuff from the 80s and even the 70s. when I went to junior high in the 90s about it's talking about Latin America as if it was, you know, in Africa too. Africa was completely depicted that way as well.
We don't talk about what they said about Africa.
India, most of Australia, at least indigenous people in Australia, which they all went in my school. They made it out like white people lived on the fringes in little shanty towns where the rest of it was a vast desert and there were Aborigines running.
Well, to be fair, the rest of it is a vast desert.
Yeah, but white people aren't living in little shanty towns on the fringes, though. They live in like industrialized cities and stuff. It's not the way that it was depicted to me when I was a kid. The way Australia seemed, it was like if you went there, it would be really, really rustic, and they wouldn't have all like the modern conveniences and things. And it wasn't until the age of the internet that I found out. I was like, no, Australia's just like here. They have all the stuff we have. Yeah, all of Africa. And Africa is just one place. All 64 nations of Africa just lumped together in one. You learn about that in school that way. And we've been on quite a bit of a tangent here. We're about halfway through this video. I don't know how much
we
we're
should
going
bump
to
it
make
up to 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah.
You guys talk too much.
You brought us on.
And to be clear, you have been with me on Bad Science Sunday numerous times.
Same for my show. You know how bad it gets.
Yeah. We got actually, and I love it. We got to talk through it, or else it's just me stealing somebody else's content. If we aren't tearing it apart, let's go.
Only to be dethroned upon further investigation. It turned out the picture Cook provided as proof of his summit attainment was actually taken on a small outcrop on a ridge beside the Ruth Glacier, 19 miles away, and at only 5,338 feet high, nearly 15,000 feet lower than McKinley's true peak. Cook's sole companion during the 1906 climb, Ed Barrell, would also later sign an affidavit admitting that they had not reached the summit, including a map showing the location of what would become known as Fake Peak, where Cook's picture was actually taken. Belmore Brown, an experienced mountaineer who assisted Cook in the weeks before his alleged summit attainment, claimed McKinley.
What this is McKinley?
Summit of what?
McKinley?
I guess. My father climbed Denali, which is the name that people should use for it.
The
Denali is the name that. Yeah, Denali is the real name, and it has been that real name by the people who first arrived. I actually don't know if it's what the first people called it, but
for sure, McKinley
what
never.
Other name does
never
it
went
have?
here.
I've only. Oh, are McKinley and Denali the same place?
Yeah.
Mount McKinley and Denali are both are names for the tallest summit in the northern hemisphere. And
I thought they were the same place.
Yeah, my father
or different words.
My father actually summited Denali in the mid 60s, and it's possible he was the youngest person on his expedition, and there hadn't been that many expeditions that summited it. So it's possible that when he summited Denali, he was the youngest person to ever do so. Ooh. But it's not confirmed.
Wow. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. And he went. So this was in the mid to like late 60s, and before he went, he got called up for his physical exam for the draft for Vietnam, and he goes and they do his physical exam and everything, and then he goes off, summits Denali with the expedition, which is clearly a thing where you have to be in really good physical condition because it's like a 2-month affair and everything. He gets back and gets a letter in the mail saying that he had been he was not being drafted into the military because he was physically unfit for service because he had high blood pressure.
Well, on the bright side, he didn't go to that.
I would not be here. Not because he would have necessarily died, just because, chaos theory. I would not be here.
You would not have been the lucky sperm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just luck of the draw, right?
McKinley too expansive and treacherous to have allowed Cook such quick access in the time frame given. He would later call Cook untrustworthy and state for the record that he, quote, knew that Dr. Cook had not climbed Mount McKinley the same way a New Yorker would know that no man could walk from the Brooklyn Bridge to Grant's Tomb in 10 minutes. Decades later, Cook would also be indicted and eventually charged and found guilty of 14 counts of fraud for startup oil companies he promoted and was sentenced to 14 years, 9 months in prison. As for Perry, his obsession with the pole caused him in the first 23 years of his marriage to spend only 3 with his wife and family, missing the birth and tragic death of his son. While in the Arctic, Perry cheated on his wife with a 14-year-old Inuit girl named Alaquasina, who would eventually bear him 2 children named Kala and Carrie. During Perry's 7 long Arctic expeditions made between 1886 and...
That sounds pretty shitty. Sounds like a pretty shitty
Yeah,
dude.
these don't sound like great people. To be fair, though, nothing that this guy is saying should be believed without external evidence, because this is Eric Dubé,
Yeah. This could be
originator
some...
of 200 Proofs for a Flat Earth.
This could be some random, like, Inuit woman, like, from anybody,
Yeah.
any exploration somebody drew a picture of, or took a picture of. So, yeah, taking Eric Dubé's word for it is, like
Never a
rolling
good idea.
dice. Yeah.
In 1909, a black man named Matthew Henson was technically more responsible for their successes than Perry himself. Henson took care of the other men, dogs, and supplies, spoke the Inuit language, pulled and fixed the sledges, and Henson even dragged Perry himself around during their final expedition, since Perry had lost 8 toes to frostbite on their previous journey and could barely walk. Even still, Perry had secretly planned to leave Henson and the Inuit guides behind for the final stint so that he could claim the pole solely for himself. His plan never came to fruition, however, and upon realizing he would have to share the fame, Perry immediately stopped speaking to Henson. The man who had engineered his success, saved his life on a previous expedition, and remained unwaveringly loyal to him for over 2 decades. As Perry had once written in a letter to his mother, quote, I must be the peer or superior of those about me to be comfortable. Historian Fergus Fleming called Perry, quote,
Yeah, not great people. Everybody around me needs to be my subordinate or I'm not going to be pleased. What the fuck?
It's like Jimmy Snow. Oh, sorry, that was a little harsh.
Oh, damn. Shots
Yeah, that was
fired.
rough. That was rough. I apologize, Jimmy. I don't know you well enough to make that statement. Wow, that was
Dang.
rough.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry about that one.
The opinions expressed in this program are do not necessarily reflect the values and opinions of the Hive or HiveScience.
Yeah. That's poor judgment on my part.
But yeah, it sounds like this guy was, well, at least as far as Eric Dubé says that this guy was a bit of a narcissist, but I don't believe Eric Dubé, so.
Yeah, exactly.
There's that.
the most unpleasant man in the annals of polar exploration. And polar researcher and author O. Riffenberg wrote that he, quote, was perhaps the most self-serving, paranoid, arrogant, and mean-spirited of all 19th century explorers. He was suspicious of, and hateful to, those he considered rivals, either in actual geographical discovery or as heroic figures. He was condescending and insensitive to his subordinates, and he was ingratiating and servile to those he felt could help his quest for personal glory. Another man preparing for a North Pole expedition in 1909 was accomplished Norwegian explorer Roald.
Homie looks a little old to be going to the North Pole. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not trying to cast shade or anything, but
And also,
Yeah.
just
like
okay, he was an asshole. Can we move on?
Yeah, right.
Eric Dubé is all about he finds the well, like before he even starts talking about something, he finds the well and says, "How can I dump as much poison in here as possible as I go through the exploits of this individual?"
I'm
Yeah.
sure you've done nothing objectionable ever, Eric.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, he could be talking about anybody, right? And be like, oh, by the way, he cheated on his wife with an Inuit woman, and it's like, what? I guess it's giving us some like Hamilton version of these guys' lives, is what we're getting here.
Amundsen. Upon hearing word of Cook and Perry's alleged successes, however, Amundsen decided to turn his attention towards the Antarctic and the South Pole instead. Unsure his patrons and crew would accept this change in plans, for the next 2 years Amundsen lied to everyone about his true destination, telling even his entire crew that they were traveling north to the Arctic Pole, right up until their ship, the Fram, was departing from their final port of call, Madeira, when he let everyone know that they would actually be going to the Antarctic in search of the South Pole. After some initial insubordination, ultimately everyone went ahead with it.
Nah, you don't get to do that once you signed the papers, right? That'd be some bullshit. You signed your contract to do an expedition, and you find out you're going, how much further would that be? About least 5 times the distance.
Yeah, but not.
Yeah.
But that distance you can do in a week. With normal, you can you could just get on a ship and cover that distance just by buying a ticket if you needed to, right? The increase in distance, the distance from going from New York to Buenos Aires, for example, or the southern tip of like South America or whatever, way easier than going the extra little distance to the actual pole. So
Yeah.
like I see your point, but
yeah, I imagine they would probably stop. Yeah,
I'll be right back.
and they'd stop in New Zealand or in South America or something. Yeah, I could see that to get the supplies, but when you signed, I guess they could change out crew too.
Yeah, I mean, if you sign a contract, you sign a contract. You know, they shouldn't drag you to the other side of the planet, but it would be more unreasonable for them to do an expedition. If they sign up for an expedition to the North Pole, it would be more unreasonable to do a bait and switch and take them to the middle of the Congo.
Yeah, well, I mean, you wouldn't have the right supplies for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a totally different job. It's a totally different thing. Maybe you like snow and cold and whatever. And honestly, I would prefer to go to the South Pole than the North Pole because I'm a lot less likely to get eaten by polar bears.
Yeah, that's true. There won't be as many polar bears. There's leopard seals, but you know, as long as you
fight a leopard seal.
As long as you don't get in the water, you should be all right. Anyway, leopard seals don't generally attack on land. They're pretty sluggish on land. You could probably be pretty safe for actually moving around a leopard seal on land. You could taunt it to an extent. I mean, I wouldn't want to get into the chomping range because their teeth are pretty vicious. But definitely not like anything like encountering a polar bear. You just don't survive that. If the polar bear decides, the polar bear makes the decision of whether or not you survive that is what I should say.
Yep.
Yeah, because
their decision is no.
Yeah, because food is rare on the ice pack.
His drastic change of plans. Upon reaching Antarctica, Amundsen brought 5 men and 52 dogs with him for the final push to the pole. And instead of bringing enough food along for everyone, Amundsen had his team kill and eat over half of the dogs used to carry them there.
Who's our freaking prophet who predicted that? Yes,
one of us.
Yummy dogs.
Delicious.
They brought dogs. I wonder what kind of seasoning they brought for them.
On December 14th, 1911, they would allegedly reach the geographic South Pole to be confirmed by Robert Falcon Scott of the British Royal Navy, who just happened to be in the Antarctic about to launch his own polar expedition. Just 1 month after Amundsen's alleged attainment of the South Pole, Scott's team, already en route, would arrive and confirm Amundsen's claim. The problem with Amundsen, Scott, and all subsequent South Polar claims, however, is the following. On the globe Earth model, the geographic South Pole is located at 90 degrees south latitude, where all 360 degrees of longitude converge to one hypothetical point in the middle of an Antarctic continent. In reality, though, the Antarctic is not a continent, but an encircling icy perimeter of unknown length, and on our planar Earth, lines of longitude only converge upon the North Pole.
Here you go, baby. This is what you wanted, isn't it?
I love you so much.
Center point and project out straight south.
Happy birthday, Tap.
I love flowers.
Words from there. 1 degree of latitude is approximately 68 miles, and the Antarctic ice begins around 70 degrees south latitude, depending on access point. Therefore, no matter what meridian of longitude followed, after traveling south across the ice significantly far enough to the 90-degree mark, several hundred miles, the pole has been achieved. In other words, the so-called geographic South Pole is just an arbitrary point in the Antarctic along any line of longitude significantly far enough south where all lines of longitude on the globe...
No, it's not. Okay, if you're at the North Pole, if you're at the South Pole and you look up and you follow the stars, which I guess you can't actually do now that I think about it, they had
There's
to do,
the Southern
all of these
Cross,
expeditions
though.
all of these expeditions had to be in daytime. You can't use stars to locate yourself in the daytime very
Yeah, because
easily.
it would have
right?
been. It would have been.
So I
their
actually don't
summer.
know how they would do
True.
it. You could do. I was going to bring this up earlier. You can technically identify if you were at a pole with like gyroscopic measurements or pendulum precession, because only at the pole will a pendulum precess exactly 360 degrees in one day.
So,
Mhm.
hypothetically, you should be able to use the same measurements they use. They were talking about the North Pole with the height of the sun as it progresses around the
Yeah,
horizon
height
as
of the
well.
sun. And if you've got a good clock, and that problem was solved in like the 1600s, that was the problem of longitude. Latitude has always been way easier because you just look at the angle of the North Star, and then like today you look at the angle of the North Star and then you adjust it by like 0.7 degrees because that's how far the North Star is away from true north. And boom, you know your latitude. What you don't know is your longitude. To do that, you need to know what time it is, like actually what time it is, and then you look at the sun and you can figure out based on how high the sun is and knowing what time it is, you can do the calculation. But if you don't know what time it is to within a minute, it's a lot harder. So clock and timekeeping technology was the thing that had to be developed before people could actually measure longitude.
Thank you. You've been just itching to talk about these topics, I know. So I'm so glad that this gives you the chance to break this down for us and why this is so dumb.
Converge and become 0 degrees. For ease of transportation, supplies, and navigation, all South Pole explorers just retrace their paths back to their boats, though if Earth was truly shaped like a ball, conceivably, they should be able to simply continue a straight-line path and come out the other side of Antarctica. No explorer on foot or by air has ever done such a south-north circumnavigation, however, because it is impossible, as the Earth is not a globe.
So, people have crossed the Antarctica, though, right?
Pretty
Yes,
sure.
there was a guy who did it a few years ago solo.
Yeah, I mean,
There were two that were trying to do it. I think they were
people-
like racing, sort of.
people have done it like cross-country skiing, right? I mean, they have a team with them following on snowmobiles or whatever, but...
Yeah, I don't know if anybody solo skied across it, but one person has done it solo. I can't remember how they did it. It might have been with dogs. It might have been with a sail.
That's
I can imagine using
interesting.
like a wind sail, right? Like that could maybe work. I'm not sure.
And I found the guy, by the way, who did the horses across across Antarctica. His name was Frederick George Jackson. Why horses instead of dogs? We don't know. But yeah, the Jackson Harmsworth expedition is what the expedition was, and good grief. Oh, all right.
For posterity, Roald Amundsen would be credited not only with being first to the geographic South Pole, but also first to winter in the Antarctic, and then subsequent expeditions to the Arctic would claim for him titles of first through the Northwest Passage, first to cross and first to circumnavigate the Arctic Ocean, first to the Ice Pole, the Arctic Ocean point furthest from land masses. And after widespread distrust and dispute of Cook and Parry's claims, a 1926 expedition would see Amundsen reclaim being first to the geographic North Pole as well. Reminiscent of the 1909 Cook-Parry controversy, however, a similar media-fueled heated debate raged in 1926 as U.S. Admiral Richard Byrd allegedly reached the pole by plane just 3 days before Roald Amundsen did by dirigible. Both Byrd and Amundsen were aware of each other's concurrent expeditions, and due to recent advances in aviation technology, both decided...
He took a dirigible to the North Pole. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds like a movie we need to see. How come Hollywood's like, oh, there's nothing new to write movies about? Here's a dude with a plane and a dude with a dirigible racing to the North Pole.
Yeah, that and Mormon history. Mormon
Yeah.
history has so many amazing things that you could write movies about.
Well, I was just talking to Doc about meeting in Nauvoo, Illinois. That's a little slice of Mormon history right there.
Oh yeah.
Had their big shootout and everything.
And not one but two wars with the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
to reach the pole via air rather than land and sea, as previous explorers attempted. Similar to Scott's follow-up confirmation of Amundsen's South Pole claim, the plan was for Admiral Byrd to fly over first and dump a load of hundreds of large American flags directly at the pole, which Amundsen would then find and confirm a few days later during his own polar flight. So on May 9, 1926, Byrd and his co-pilot departed in their Fokker trimotor airplane, the Josephine Ford, from the Norwegian...
Their what trimodal airplane?
They're Fokker. It's a Fokker.
Oh, wow.
There's-
That's a Fokker.
It's a Fokker.
Yeah.
They flew in a Fokker to meet the Fokkers.
Do they still make Fokkers?
I don't know if they still make Fokkers, but I know that there's like a
This Fokker looks pretty cool, though.
yeah, no, I mean it's I wish I had a Fokker. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've run this one into the ground, boys. Let's move on.
A little bit.
Island Spitsbergen and attempted to fly over the pole. Just 15 hours and 57 minutes later, including an alleged 13 minutes of circling the pole, Byrd landed back at Spitsbergen, claiming to have reached the pole and traveled a distance of 1,535 miles. Upon return to the United States, Byrd became a national hero, promoted to the rank of commander, and was awarded a Presidential Medal of Honor at the White House. Roald Amundsen's airship, the Norge, allegedly floated over the pole 3 days later, on May 12th, but was unable to confirm Byrd's attainment because Byrd never ended up dropping his cargo of U.S. flags over the pole, nor provide a public explanation of why. At first, Byrd's polar claim was widely accepted, and Amundsen reduced to second fiddle. But after new evidence came to light, and further investigations made clear, Byrd never dropped the flags, because he never actually reached the pole. The first public skepticism of Byrd began a year after his death, in 1958, when Byrd's colleague, personal pilot during his South Pole flight, and helper in Spitsbergen for the North Pole flight, Bernd Balken, published his book, Come North With Me, which questioned the feasibility of Byrd's 1926 polar claim. Essentially, Byrd's sextant-locked 61-knot mean speed for the first 6¼ hours.
So it's not like he's not aware of sextants and how they work.
Yeah. You mean Eric?
Yeah.
Well,
Eric.
I'm sure he's not unaware of sextants. I'm sure he's unaware of how they work. Like he might be able to say all the words correctly, but the neurons aren't
tell you what
actually
they mean.
connecting. Yeah.
He doesn't understand what it's telling you when you're looking through it.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know how they work. I'm not a navigator.
Trigonometry, I assume.
Yeah.
I've never used a sextant, but
Seeing people use them though, it looks like it's very technical, and I've used other tools to align, but they were digital tools, so I know that that those measurements are there to figure out where you are on the Earth. Again, not doing anything special. I installed satellite dishes in my 20s for a little bit, and it was work, but there was a little tool that we used to align ourselves with where the satellite would cross over, so that they would be pointing in the right direction. And so I know that and then that's the thing too. What is people? How do they explain that? If I went to Eric and said, "How come when I adjust this satellite dish, it has to be pointed towards where these satellites that you don't think exist pass over? Why is that?" Something very simple and pedestrian that that he could go and get trained how to do in like 2 weeks.
yeah.
To do it.
His answer would probably be that it's programmed to not work unless you have it tilted in a certain way.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of is.
That's a lot of effort, right? That's a lot of effort. Just go down. Eric Dubé just needs to go to get a 2-week entry. He doesn't have to stay at the job, but like DirecTV or Dish Network or someplace like that, where they go around and do the installs and just get the training. That should be enough. Just my opinion, because you have to do that with every install. And it's different depending on where you're located at.
Of the flight, per his own records, in a recorded 7:07 GCT sextant shot, required that to reach the pole at the reported time, he would need to have suddenly, after taking the reading, jumped his average speed over double, from 61 to an implausible 148 knots, in order to cover the final 284 miles in the alleged time allotted. In addition, once supposedly reaching the pole and circling around it for 13 minutes, his written calculations contradictorily still claimed constant 85 mile per hour straight-line speed northward. Apologists and defenders of Byrd dismissed Balken's objections, insisting prevailing winds may have helped him along, until, in 1960, Gosta Liljeqvist, professor of meteorology at University of Uppsala, examined the meteorological records and concluded there were absolutely no polar winds strong enough on May 9, 1926, to propel Byrd so swiftly to his destination. Another exposure of Bird's hoax surfaced in 1971 with Richard Montague's book
His hoax, but he's gonna believe every word Bird says when he talks about seeing the continents beyond the ice wall in his flight. So he picks and chooses which parts of Bird's expedition were a hoax.
Oceans, Poles, and Airmen, in which he interviewed Bernd Balken, who claimed that Floyd Bennett, Bird's North Pole co-pilot, had confessed to him before his death that the Josephine Ford had actually developed an oil leak early in the flight, lost a motor several hundred miles from the pole, and subsequently turned back, circling out of sight of land without making an effort to reach the pole. The final nail in Bird's coffin came with the 1996 release of his personal diary and papers, recording the May 9th, 1926 flight. His official sextant reading, typewritten in his June 22nd report to the National Geographic Society, taken at 7:07:10 GCT, claimed a solar altitude of 18 degrees, 18 minutes, and 18 seconds. In his diary, however, an erased but still legible recording shows his apparent observed solar altitude at 7:07:10 to have been 19 degrees, 25 minutes, and 30 seconds. Not only this, but a scrap piece of paper found in Bird's diary, also in his handwriting, shows a third scribbled solar altitude for 7:07:10 as being 18 degrees, 19 minutes, and 18 seconds. This intermediate scrap paper calculation between the diary recording and official typewritten report shows evidence of gradual doctoring of the raw data in an effort to fudge a believable figure. In addition, Bird's official recorded sextant data was overly precise, far beyond the capabilities of his or...
I don't believe you, Eric. You poisoned the well by thinking the Earth's flat. So I don't believe anything else you say about this guy being a fraudster. Bird was highly decorated, you know. He was a weird guy, had some weird stuff going on in his life, but you know he was highly decorated and respected. I don't think that he was a fraudster. I don't think he was a fraud. I'm just gonna say that, just from everything I've read about him. But you know, whatever.
Any other sextant available at the time. Dead reckoning latitudes were recorded with 1,000 times better precision than physically possible, again pointing towards an attempt to overcompensate the perceived accuracy of his inaccurate fudged data. To summarize, Bird's 1926 primary record includes several mysterious erasures, back-and-forth diary entries, confirmed fabrications, and contradictions, including 2 takeoff times, 3 pole arrival times, and 7:07 sextant altitudes, and 4 different speeds. In documents including his diary from the time, we see intermediary steps of his forging calculations for the most believable and accurate times, airspeeds, distances, and solar altitudes. He never dropped the cargo of U.S. flags as intended, and could not have attained the pole at the speeds recorded. Dennis Rollins wrote, in brief, Bird's diary and his typescript describe 2 quite different trips. Indeed, there are actually 4 distinct trips, because the diary has 3 separate and contradictory sections. The sextant observations are for a 70-mile-per-hour celestially navigated trip. The radioed distances are for an 80-mile-per-hour direct trip, while the last-minute direct data are for an 85-mile-per-hour trip. But the later neat typescript claims that the mean northward speed was over 90 miles per hour. The typescript trip does not agree with any of the 3 disparate diary trips. If you are caught keeping 2 sets of fiscal books, you go to jail. Not even the wildest defense lawyer would try alibying the accused by treating the differences between the 2 documents as exculpatory or mysterious, when the whole point of the indictment is the...
Oh boy, there's a whole lot being said here that I don't believe Eric that he understands.
Well, do you believe he understands anything?
Well, I mean, based on other stuff that he says, the stuff that he claims to understand, no. Based on that, I do not.
Yeah.
I think I don't think he believes it either. Just listening to what he says, though, listen to how he delivers it. I think he's a troll. But there are people who do believe him, and that's the problem. Yeah.
Discrepancies. Question. Did any other explorer in history leave us manuscript astronomical observations for position which grossly, to his disadvantage, invariably differed from his published observations? Since Cook, Perry, and Bird's North Pole claims have all been found fraudulent, it is now generally accepted that Roald Amundsen's dirigible flight of May 12, 1926 did cross the pole, and he is credited with being the first explorer to both the South and North Poles. Even Wikipedia states that, quote, 3 prior expeditions led by Frederick Cook, 1908 land, Robert Perry, 1909 land, and Richard E. Byrd, 1926 aerial, were once also accepted as having reached the pole. However, in each case, later analysis of expedition data has cast doubt upon the accuracy of their claims. This is also Irish journalist Anthony Galvin's conclusion.
I think that's pretty cool, though, if the first people that officially and accurately documented a journey to the North Pole were in a dirigible. I couldn't, I mean...
Yeah, that's pretty badass.
Considering the time period it was during, too, yeah.
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 If it wasn't for the Hindenburg, you never know where we would have went with these big airships. that disaster ruined the prospects for us all.
Yep.
In
I
his
mean,
book,
they
The Great
also
Polar
just-
Fraud,
Oh, never mind.
Hook, Perry, and Bird, How 3 American Heroes Duped the World into Thinking They Had Reached the North Pole. Ever since Amundsen's dirigible, the Norge, allegedly successfully floated over the pole, many more explorers have also continued the legacy. Norge designer and pilot Umberto Nobile, along with several scientists and crew, allegedly crossed the pole a second time on May 24, 1928, in the airship Italia, which crashed before returning, killing half the people on board. In May 1937, the Soviet government established the world's first North Pole ice station, allegedly just 13 miles from the pole. Interestingly enough, this station was found by icebreakers just 9 months later off the eastern coast of Greenland, over 1,700 miles away. This was explained as being caused by swift ice drifts, which radically displaced them. In May 1945, David Cecil
Something we've discussed a couple times already.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can happen. We can record them.
Yeah, I mean, and if that's an actual photo of like the North Pole at that moment, like it's literally underwater.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any islands or land masses that ever cross over the North Pole. I don't.
No,
think
there's
that
not. The closest land is a while away, but I would expect it to. I would not expect it to be like under. I mean, other than it being under the Arctic Ocean, but I would have expected the surface to be frozen.
Yeah.
I don't think like we haven't even with global warming so far. I don't think that the entire Arctic melts yet.
Yeah, I don't think the North Pole melts,
Yes.
Yeah.
but I think it does move. And what's underneath, or what's floating on top of the position that is the North Pole, I think that varies from different times a year and over decades and via climactic events. But I'm still weirded out by all the pictures of them with like rocks and stuff with at the North Pole. But I'm gonna get over it.
Are you though?
McKinley of the
No, I'm gonna think about it while I lay in bed at night.
Royal Air Force
I mean,
claimed to
there's
fly
worse
over
things you
both
could
the
think about.
geographic and North Magnetic poles.
True.
The Soviet Sever-2 expedition in May 1948 claimed to set foot on the pole, and in May 1949, Soviets Vitaly Volovich and Andrei Medvedev claimed being first to parachute to the pole. In May 1952, U.S. Air Force Lieutenants Joseph Fletcher and William Benedict claimed the first aerial landing at the pole. The U.S. Navy submarine USS Nautilus allegedly crossed the pole in August 1958, and in March 1959, the USS Skate claimed first to surface at the pole, breaking through the ice above it. On April 1969, British Trans-Arctic expedition claimed first to reach the North Pole by foot. August 1977, the Soviet icebreaker Arctica claimed first surface ship to reach the pole. And on the list of alleged polar firsts continue, from first by dog sled to first by motorcycle. In 1985, for a particularly interesting media-hyped first, Sir Edmund Hillary, the first man to stand on the summit of Mount Everest, and Neil Armstrong, the alleged first man to stand on the moon, claimed to land a small twin-engine ski plane and stand together at the North Pole.
That's pretty awesome too. That the first guy on top of you say Hillary was the first guy on top of Mount Everest, but I think he had a Sherpa that beat him by a couple of minutes. However, we can't hear you, Doc. Tap. But
I said, yeah, that's probably true.
But Armstrong definitely was the first guy on the moon. He didn't even have a Sherpa. I don't know why you think with the NASA's budget they'd be able to afford a Sherpa, but no.
As is abundantly clear to anyone who has objectively studied the NASA Apollo missions, Freemason Neil Armstrong most certainly did not land on the moon, so it is fair and wise to be skeptical of whether he and his royally knighted colleague, Sir Edmund Hillary, actually stood foot on the geographic pole as well. As for the magnetic poles, the North was allegedly discovered by James Clark Ross in 1831 at the Boothia Peninsula, named after his father's patron, Sir Felix Booth. This peninsula, located at 7...
What does this picture have to do with what he's talking about? It's just, I guess...
They're Masons.
Masons, gotcha.
They're spooky Masons.
Yeah.
Masonic Sovereign Grand Commander, Master Mason in Montclair Lodge. It's got the lodge number, guys. This is serious.
Mm-hmm. My best friend is a Mason.
Did he go to the moon too?
He did not go to the moon.
Not a moon Mason. Okay.
70 degrees north latitude, however, strangely placed the magnetic pole well over 1,000 miles from the geographic pole. Roald Amundsen, during his 1903 Arctic expedition, was also credited with discovering a new...
Does it get that far from does the geographic and the magnetic North Pole, do they get that far from each other, 1,000 miles?
How far? I can believe it, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
And the poles, the magnetic poles have switched. So like the North magnetic pole has been on the south, like they switch every, but not like super predictably.
Yeah.
It's
erratic.
Like
yeah,
there's an average, but it's not.
We don't have
It's
great
not
models
super
for it.
predictable.
Yeah, we don't have super great models for it.
Okay. Is one of them stronger than the other? Is that how we...
I actually don't know.
Well, how we know the
imagine.
poles flip?
Oh, we know that
when
from
they-
the direction of the magnetic moments in like little microscopic like rocks, like in ocean trenches and stuff. Like the
Well, just in
Atlantic
the
one.
rock, yeah. They don't
Yeah.
even have to be microscopic. You can see it in
Fair, yeah, fair.
well, just minerals. Minerals will be polarized one way and then polarized the other, and you can chart it pretty accurately up and down the column.
So when it does its flip, when it flips, is there a moment in time where there's no magnetic field, or the magnetic field would be like east-west? Just flip
Probably,
out.
yeah. It's probably it might even last for a few thousand years.
I honestly I don't know. These
Oh,
things
that would be
happen in
crazy.
the blink of geologic time, but
Yeah,
that's a blink of geologic time.
yeah, exactly.
Could you imagine the magnetic north and south aligning with the equator while the planet still spins on its regular axis? That'd be so weird.
Yeah.
Position of the magnetic North Pole, just 30 miles north from where Ross had claimed. It was later in 1947 allegedly found again by Canadian government scientists Paul Serson and Jack Clark of the Dominion Astrophysical Observatory, who claimed the pole had moved near Prince of Wales Island at 72 degrees north latitude. Since then, the North Magnetic Pole has continued to be discovered time and again at random places in the Arctic, following no discernible pattern. Likewise, the South Magnetic Pole was first allegedly discovered by Sir Ernest Shackleton during his 1909 expedition, and has ever since been found randomly moving all over the Antarctic. The idea of constantly randomly moving magnetic poles, divorced from their geographic counterparts, makes it conveniently impossible to...
Conveniently impossible. It's not like we can measure this thing and see that there's actually something happening where it's moving. No, it's just for convenience it moves.
It's just convenient for the globe heads.
Yup.
independently confirm or deny polar claims by compass. In other words, since the invention of the video camera, any claim to have found the North or South Magnetic Pole can and should be easily proven. By holding a compass and walking in a circle around the North Pole, the compass should always point directly towards it. And by walking in a circle around the South Pole, the compass should always point 180 degrees away in the opposite direction. To this day, however, no such single experiment has been performed to
It's
prove
not
to the
that
public that these are truly
small.
magnetic poles at all.
Yeah. It,
How many miles would you have? You wouldn't just walk in a circle. You'd have to go like hundreds of miles in a circle, right?
Yeah, like a few hundred miles at the very least.
Because
yeah, the magnetic field of Earth it's also not a simple dipole. It's approximated by a dipole, but it's not a simple dipole. Which is why, by the way, that like compass readings would provide, you know, some idea, because the geomagnetic North Pole and the pole, like geographic North Pole, are different. You could use trigonometry to like figure out your longitude, even if you didn't have a good timekeeper. But the compass readings they drift more and they're sort of noisier because there are local phenomena that affect it.
no doubt. We got about 3.5 more minutes of this. We're gonna power through, okay?
Boom, boom.
Yahoo!
Similarly, there are no videos from the geographic poles that provide the public with any concrete evidence that they are anywhere but some indistinct, undisclosed snowy tundra. North Pole documentaries always show some man with an icicle mustache and a Garmin counting up their GPS latitude until reaching 90 degrees. There are never stellar readings made showing Polaris exactly 90 degrees above. There is no footage
Because
of the
it's
6
not-
months of constant day.
There's a live camera where you can watch where it's spent like days or like a whole year pointed at
At
Polaris.
the South Pole, yes. At the really? Are there?
Isn't there? Isn't there a Polaris cam?
at the North Pole, I wouldn't. The North Pole is a lot less stable than the South Pole. Like there are people who live at the South Pole year round. It's only a small group. Because
I've seen their
can,
videos
like
too.
you're stuck there. You're stuck there for half the year basically.
Yeah, they pointed at the Southern Cross, right? That's where they're.
Yeah, and there's definitely cameras all because the Southern Pole is actually it's a fairly sophisticated big research station, where quality of life is like not absolutely horribly atrocious, like just mostly.
North Pole Star Cam. Could have swore there was North Pole Cam 2015. So that's it's just got some it's not year round. It's just some samplings of specific dates where they did the stars and the North Pole.
Day and 6 months of constant night supposed to exist at the pole. GPS, the Global Positioning System, is based on a non-existent globe and created by the US military. So why should we trust that a GPS 90-degree north reading is truly the North Pole? Why are the annals of polar exploration so abundant with frauds and hoaxes? Why should we accept all these more...
I 100% think that Eric Dubé uses GPS to navigate when he's driving and needs to find the place that he has never been before.
Probably.
Recent polar
although to be fair, a lot of those things are a lot of that location stuff is done with cell towers nowadays. Not necessarily with satellites.
But according to Eric, it's 100% with cell towers, though. There's no satellites at all that exist.
Well, satellites are fake.
Yeah.
The original discoveries and discoverers continue being exposed as false and liars. Why is there such an inordinate number of royal knights and Freemasons involved in polar exploration? Admiral Byrd himself was a high-ranking Freemason.
Why are rich people the only ones who can afford to take these expensive trips to the North Pole? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense.
From Federal Lodge No. 1 in Washington, D.C., and financed by none other than fellow 33rd-degree Freemason and Illuminati bloodline elite John D. Rockefeller. Roald Amundsen even had Masonic Lodge No. 640.
Did anybody have anti-Semitism on their bingo card?
I totally would. It's Eric Dubé goes full anti-Semitism quite often.
8 in Sacramento, California, named after him. If these explorers truly reached the North Pole, then where is the magnetic mountain, encircling whirlpool, 4 directional rivers, and surrounding inhabited islands mentioned by Adam of Bremen, Paul the Deacon, Gerald of Wales, Guido Guinazelli, Nicholas de Linde, Jacobus Sinoian, Gerard Mercator, John Dee, the Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, Shinto, Taoists, Jews, Christians, Muslims, the Norse, the Egyptians, the Persians, and literally every single ancient culture on Earth? Are these all to be discounted as completely false stories with no factual impetus? And if the polar...
Yes. It is interesting to finally tackle a flat Earth video about the North Pole, though. I've never done one before, so
yeah,
it's always the South Pole that they go on and on about.
Which, fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, but because all these ancient cultures and stuff had mythology about a land in the south with a big lake in the middle and a mountain in the middle of the lake and 4 continents divided by rivers, and just because they had mythology that in different places that vaguely resemble this doesn't mean that we should expect the actual North Pole to resemble this. Is that supposed to be Greenland right there? I'm assuming, maybe.
I honestly, none of those are well defined enough. I would guess, because I think that thing over on the left is probably supposed to be like the Hudson Bay.
Okay, so I know this is Scandinavia right here, right?
Yeah, it's gotta be right.
See. So this would be Iceland. Then this would be Greenland, but it seems like it's upside down. I don't know what that would be then. Atlantis?
Flatlantis.
Yeah, and then this Hudson Bay right here, yeah. I think you're right. That little bay right there, and this would be the Bering Strait.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm caught up.
Our magnetic mountain truly is just fanciful mythology and nonsense? How do we account for this same quote-unquote false concept, originating and flourishing independently in nearly every ancient culture worldwide?
There you go. You get Tim Pole off my screen.
What
So
a mess.
that was exciting. Did y'all really get what you expected from today's episode?
I had no idea what to expect, and I hate him.
Yeah.
There was just nothing.
Yeah. You see what we mean about the punchable voice, though? Nothing right there.
Yeah, I get it. It's just like he spent 40 minutes, or however long that was, just telling us nothing of substance. Like just reading off the Wikipedia page.
With an incredulous voice, like it was like and throwing in words like alleged and proposed or whatever, like making it sound like none of this stuff really happened. I think he read the Wikipedia with just inserting those keywords in there.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, we've been going for 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's been a long show. But there was a lot to go through here, right?
So much.
Yeah, so
So
there's
much
more to
beautiful
come.
Eric Dubé content.
And next time I have Doc Dino on, I do intend to maybe do an Eric Dubé dinosaur video. And
How bad is he?
dinosaurs aren't even real. Dude.
Dinosaurs.
They're not real.
Yeah, they're
Oh, of course he's one of those idiots.
Yeah.
So, and then I think the next time I have Tapioca Weasel on, I imagine it's going to be maybe some time travel or physics or something that we can sink our teeth into. Or maybe more flat earth stuff. I don't know. Electric universe. We've always talked about doing electric universe. We've dabbled in it a bit here and there, but...
The electric universe people are different because they tend to be educated in like a specific thing, and then they think like they have a hammer and everything is a nail, right?
Right.
They know everything about everything because of a specific thing they know.
Exactly. And they apply it to everything, but they aren't incompetent at like the thing that... Yeah, it's basically electrical engineers thinking everything is electrical engineering.
Right, and you run into that a lot in the younger creationist community too. So you get programmers thinking everything is code.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, who's the worst at that?
John Maddox.
Maddox, yeah. He is just... he's a... utterly
yeah,
unpleasant
I've only
human
seen him
being.
in debates, but he's
never
such a
interacted.
smug asshole.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
like about using programming. Frickin' is his
Yeah.
platform that the DNA as a code, as a computer code.
Yeah.
All right, so I don't want to keep Dr. Tapioca Weasel too much longer because I know that you probably want to get something to eat before you have to get over there and hang out with Maya over there on Bad Science Sunday. Maya, love, will you drop a link for that in the side chat if you're still with us? If not,
Our
Steph
guests this evening are Oz and Jenna. If I recall
Oz and
correctly.
Jenna of the flavor.
Of the
What are you
flavor,
covering?
yeah. We are covering... So it's actually... I wasn't able to find who else covered it, because somebody, I think, like, responded to it somewhat recently, but we're going to have our own awesome take on it. It is... it's Living Water Ministries. We're doing Ray Comfort.
Oh no.
Yeah, we're doing Ray Comfort. And this is a video that somebody has covered somewhat recently, but it's gonna be great.
What's the topic of the video?
Title of the video: Think the Bible is not scientific. This video will change your mind. 20 of the top scientific facts in the Bible.
Oh dear.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad.
Scientific
It's very
facts in the Bible.
Yeah.
Laying them out. This is what the facts say. This is what.
Oh,
Yeah. All right. So we know that's what you got coming up tonight. Looking like that's going to be a fun one. What about you, our dinosaur friend? I know you got your Monday regular stream, but what else you got going on this week?
Well, I do have that. Creation Science Theater. We're currently working through a hour-and-a-half long presentation by this dude who manages to offend every single field of science that I can think of.
Oh boy.
Which dude is it again?
It's from this weird creationist society. I forget what they're called.
It's not called Ba, though, right? That was the
No,
other
it's not
guy.
Blah.
I think Dapper did like
Screen.
a whole month of videos.
They're
about
they're
Karl
from the
Ba.
Universal Model YouTube channel, and they're
Oh, that sounds
they're
interesting.
horrific. Yeah, we haven't gotten to this quite yet. They say that Noah's flood caused eruptions that cratered the moon.
Yeah, that. Oh, I love that.
Sorry, I misspoke. The moon's around Saturn.
Okay, well.
Oh,
Yeah, you might want to join us, Tap. It'll blow your
I
mind.
would love to. I don't know if I'll be able to because I work, but yeah.
But yeah, that's what I have going on. I'm wanting to do a longer video again, debating if I should do like a review of Walking with Dinosaurs because that'd be fun, or I'm not sure. Something less creationist-y.
Something less masochistic and torturous.
I don't know if you heard my girlfriend there, but yes,
I heard something. I was like, I thought it was
something
like
less
an echo.
masochistic and torturous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it doesn't get more masochistic and torturous than Eric Dubé, though, so I'm glad you survived. You can put this on your resume now.
No. I don't want to have anything to do with him on a resume.
Yeah, none of this goes on my CV.
All right. Well, I really do appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with me and watching some bad flat Earth videos. From the OG flat earther, or one of the OG flat earthers, I guess I should say. I guess Mark Sargent could compete.
He was around before Mark Sargent, I think.
Yeah.
I think if anybody deserves the title OG Flat Earther in the modern era, I think it is Eric Dubé.
Well, there you go. So glad I could help you cut your teeth on that, Doc, and bring that to the table for you guys to enjoy. To all my live chat out there who's been sticking with us through all this nonsense, thank you so much for hanging out. Hit the like, hit the subscribe if you're not subscribed. Go pop over to Bad Science Sunday. The link should be dropped somewhere in the side chat there.
I don't know. Yeah, I haven't actually.
Does Maya not have the link yet? Sometimes.
Oh, well, I don't know if Maya. I haven't seen Maya in the chat for a little bit. She might be like driving or something.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I won't put any pressure on that. But yeah, make sure you're subscribed to Maya Atkinson and check out the Bad Science Sunday. I'm there probably at least 1 week a month. I pop in to be one of the guest hosts.
Yeah. There we go.
Yeah. You might
Type
just
the
link your
link-
channel.
type the link in it.
Yeah.
But I don't think we have the link to the actual stream yet because we almost never do until like an hour before the show. So
Yeah. Anyhow, yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for sticking around. Remember to be kind, take care, and we shall see you next time.
Adios.